Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So we're doing this again. This is Esoteric Circus, and this is, I'm going to call this Volume 1 instead of Podcast 1. I'm going to call it Volume 1. It sounds so legit. Yeah, this is our second attempt at this. So, hey, welcome. So, yes, and I'm Melodee.
I'm Jamie.
Yes, and we are new at this whole, well, we're not new at entertaining, okay? Hence the name Circus. That's actually how we know each other. Yes, I know circus performers. Can you believe it? So, but why do we have esoteric in front of it? Well, hey, check this out, Demi. So I have, I went on a deep dive on the word esoteric.
Okay.
And it's so perfect to describe what we're doing. And by the way, if you see that buffering, don't worry about it. It'll clear itself up.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So check this out. So esoteric, I mean, we know what it means, but like I was looking into like the kind of etymology of it.
Yeah.
And so it comes from the Greek, and it means into or within. And so it's intended, or it's likely to be understood like the word esoteric, if something's esoteric, by a small number of people with specialized knowledge or interest.
Love it.
I think that's exactly perfect.
Perfect. It's so perfect.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to take these off because I don't need to hear myself anymore to make sure that this is, so I'm going to take them off because I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Oh my God. My whole world just opened up.
All right.
Okay. If you hear any weird stuff on the mic, just let me know.
Okay.
So, we decided to do this because of that exact definition. And then we're circus performers. So
it's perfect.
It's perfect. And people are always fascinated by that. They want to know everything about the circus. And what that was like. So we're not new at talking to people, but we might be a little new at talking to people about this kind of stuff.
About this. Yeah. We have been in the broom closet, as some people like to say, for a long time. And we're coming out, baby. We're coming out.
Broom closet. I love it.
Have you never heard that before?
No, not that.
Yeah.
That's so good.
I'm so glad I told you that for the first time, like live, because that's great. Yeah. We've been in the broom closet for a long time, and we're ready to come out and be like, you know what, people, we're weird. And there's a lot of weird people out there. So let's be weird together.
Let's all hold hands and be weird. Well, it's kind of cool because we have this common interest in all this stuff, but it comes from personal experiences. So we kind of agreed to, okay, speaking of which, anyway, here we go. We have these like separately personal experiences in our lives that are, I mean, we both have like crazy life stories, but I think that it all, like, everything kind of makes you into, who you are and all that. We know that, but like, just weird experiences were the norm for me growing up. And so I thought this first episode we would do kind of like our backstory about like how did we arrive here? Like you are here now. Like what on the map, out of the broom closet. Oh God, I love that so much. But like here we are right now. How did we get here? Why are we doing this? Like what kind of personality personal experiences have we had that have made us want to do something like this? Because there's a lot of podcasts out there that talk about weird stuff, but I feel like the reason, if you're watching this, just bear with us, because trust me, we're offering a very unique perspective because of who we are and our backstories. We didn't come at this in the same way that a lot of people do. So
yeah, I think that's very important to know that it's not like we read books and we're telling you the stuff that we've learned, because we kind of are, but why did we read those books to begin with? It's because we had all these weird experiences. We were looking for answers. We didn't have the internet growing up. So we had to go to the library and get the weird books. And then, and here we are. So,
I mean, wouldn't you say though, like, okay, so we both are very well read and all sorts of things, but wouldn't you say that the reason why you sought out, like, and still are, that curiosity thing is to try to explain what the heck, like, happened in your life growing up? I mean, that was, for me, that was my quest, was like, what is this? Like, I needed answers that people were not either willing to provide, but actually I don't, I mean, it's partly that, but most of it is just that they didn't want to provide those answers, and didn't want to discuss it or talk about it or whatever else. So,
I think for me, it was more of a quest to make sure that I wasn't crazy.
Yeah,
because when you see things or know things and your immediate family around you doesn't see that, or even tells you that you're crazy for seeing stuff like that, then I'm like, okay, but I've heard other people have similar experiences. So I'm going out and digging through anything I can find on TV or like books or anything to hopefully read that someone said, I did A, B, and C. And then you're like, okay, thank God I'm not the only one. And we still do that all the time. Me and you, where I was like, oh my God, this thing happened. And you're like, yeah, me too. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm not crazy. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not about everything. Way. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I've always thought the mundane and the super normal was crazy, but, I think it's crazy to not ask questions about, like, speaking of that, hang on, I have so many things. So just to put it in perspective, and I knew this, but like, I really went on. So this will kick it off. Okay. So humans perceive, get this, guys, we perceive with our organs of sense, like our eyes and, all of your senses, we perceive 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Oh my God.
Get this. So animals, they perceive, and this is like all, you can, fact check your ass off, I don't care. But animals perceive 1%, almost 1%. So they perceive 99.9% more than we do, but it's still less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So that will give everybody some perspective of, like, really, it's not crazy that there's quite literally 99% of existence in and of itself. We can't perceive it, like, with our sense organs. Like, so, you know what I mean? Well, I mean, we really can't. It's more like 99.99% that we can't. But, so, and that's with our physical, like our eyes, so, it's kind of like when you have something that is what we've labeled as supernatural or paranormal, that's actually more normal, because it is the majority of existence is unseen to us. So that's actually normal. We're like, what we perceive is like, it's nothing. And so, I knew that, but like just getting that in perspective, like on that scale is huge. So like we see the planets, but we're just seeing what we can see of the planets, which is just their material, like, manifestation. So that being kind of like the blanket thing over this is like, no wonder when people have an extraordinary experience that you can't explain with our little teensy perception,
Yeah.
ability, that it causes such a, a question mark in your head. And it, for us, and I think that like, you know, for us, we perceive probably, and have perceived a little bit more than that 0.0035, right?
Yeah.
I think like probably the animals, we're in sync more with like
Yeah.
their perception of stuff, because it's instinct, intuition, and all of that. But I was going to ask you, what was the first, like, do you remember like the first weird thing that ever happened to you like that, like a paranormal or supernatural experience? Like, and
Gosh.
how old were you?
I there's been so many. I don't know if I could turn the clock back. I don't know. I was pretty young.
Yeah.
Probably, you know what? This isn't like seeing something supernatural because after I was born, I had to go live with my grandma and I lived with her till I was like 5. And then I came to my mom and dad's house, which is like super like full of energy. I'd hate to say the word haunted, but totally. I mean, like, so that was after 5.
We'll get into that. Yeah, we'll get into that.
But I mean, like, so before that, so from like, 4 months to like 5, when I was with my grandmother, I think the earliest thing I can remember was being little, maybe 3, I don't know, 3, 4 maybe. And I was watching Annie, the movie Annie, with
Which
my
you
grandma.
and I
And
both
she was
have
like,
that
let's watch it.
connection.
Yeah. She's like, let's watch Annie. And I'm like, cool, I love this movie. Well, or I loved it later, but I think the first time I saw it, the opening where it shows like the street and the cars and the way people are dressed, like slapped me in the face. And I was like, I know that place. And I told my grandma, I said, where is this? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, no, where is this place? I remember this place. And she's like, honey, this is a movie. And I'm like, no, but where is this place? And she was like, I don't know, like New York City or something. And I was like, but I've been there. And she's like, no, you haven't. And I understand now, but I didn't as a child, that I was remembering the cars and the outfits and everything as something I remembered from a past life, but I didn't know any of that. And I didn't understand time. Okay. I'm like 3 years old. So I thought there was a town where all the cars and the buildings and the people looked like that. I didn't understand the difference between the 1920s and the 1980s. I didn't get that. I think how I saw the world was how it's always been, you know? So I didn't think it was a time. I thought it was a place, and I remembered it. I remembered like just bells and whistles coming off. And then not too long after that happened again. I remember my grandma taking me to see Santa Claus, and it was my first time being in a queue line. And I remember going through the line, and I remember thinking, oh, this is fun. It's like going through a maze. And I was like, but the maze should be like, where's the bushes? Like, it should be like a hedge maze is what I was remembering. But I was like, this is so weird. I can see the people. How come it's not bushes that we're going through? And I was like, that's weird. And I know that was before I was 5. And so again, later, I'm thinking like, why did I have that thought? And I'm like, I must have had a past life of a hedge maze, because I didn't go through a hedge maze till I was like in my 30s. Like it's not something that we have here in Georgia. So those two are the first things that I remember now as an adult as, oh, I was having past life, like flashes. But at the time I just was like, this is weird. And then, moved on. So that's probably the earliest. I know yours is a lot earlier than that, but for me, I would say 3.
No, that's early. I mean, I have memory of things like, my first memories are before I could speak, but I would say that same time period, really, well, the first movie I ever saw was Annie, as you know. I think I've told you that.
Yeah.
It was, like, I'm adopted, and I have to be careful about talking about that publicly because I don't want to, like, hurt feelings of family members and so forth, that that I like to think about, but you know,
It is what
but
it is.
it is what it is. So after I was adopted, one of the first things that I remember doing, but was going to see the movie Annie, which if you think about it, it's kind of sadistic.
About someone who can't get adopted, basically.
Like, let's go see what you just went through.
That's pretty messed up. Maybe
They
they thought you were going to
know,
relate or something. I don't know. Were you like, oh, are you trying to show me what it's like? Are you rich?
right. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, so yeah, I'm like, it is a hard not life. Anyway,
Yeah. God, I couldn't imagine.
so I'm like, I know these songs. I know these songs. Anyway, but so I had a real but that same time period. So I was obsessed with the Shirley Temple movie, The Little Princess.
Yeah.
Yeah, which took place in that that kind of same, like World War I time period of like, what a strange time period too, because it's like right on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution, and it's just the world was like still like you still had horse pulled, buggies, but then you also had like the first cars, and you had, you know, and I always was drawn to it in a weird way. But so I think we share that one, but yeah, I think, I think that classifies as well, they say, kids, the veil is thin, right?
Yeah.
And so I always tell people that have kids, like, pay attention to what your kid says. It's not all, it's just their imagination. Like if they're getting real specific about something and, just talking about stuff that you're like, where the hell did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Like, pay attention, write that stuff down. My grandma wrote down a lot of that for me. Now, mine was a little different. I remembered very strange. Well, I would just talk at length about these beings called hammer lammers. That's what I said that they were. And, I could, I'm like, yeah, I would tell my grandma would be driving. She's like, tell me about them hammer lammers. And I knew that wasn't like the name, but like that was the closest I could come up with like in English or whatever to like talk about them.
Yeah.
But they were these massive creatures that were like the sides of buildings, and they were kind of like Ents in like Lord of the Rings. And they would just like slam down into the like where like the surface like a ground, and they were like working on like, I don't know, like it's like they were disrupting like energy lines or something. Like they were just like, like they didn't care about messing with you, but they were there to do a job, but like they wouldn't stop. Like if you ran underneath one, I would tell my grandmother this, if you ran underneath one, like they're not going to like stop doing what they're doing.
Wow.
And she's like, well, what are they? And I was like, well, they're like, they're like huge, like, I don't know, like miners or something, but they're like monsters. And she's like, well, where are they at? And I'm like, well, they're not right here right now. But then I was like, but I've seen them before. And then we would go on these long drives, like out in the middle of nowhere, like in West Texas and stuff. And there were some parts of like where it was real barren, and like you could see or like Oklahoma, you could see for miles. And then if I could focus in enough, I could see them. And they were like these big, giant lumbering things, like ancient, and there weren't a lot of, I would be like, there's not a lot of them around anymore, but they used to be everywhere. She wrote all this down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She would like have conversations about it with me, and I would just tell her all about it, and just talk about like there was a cemetery that we used to drive past, and she would say that I would tell her that there was a dragon that lived in that cemetery, and it was guarding one of the tombstones there. And she's like, well, what's it look like? And I was like, it's real big and it's nice to me. I wave at it. And she's like,
Oh my God.
And I did it every time we'd go past there. I'd be like,
How old were you?
Oh, I mean, whenever they got me. So it was like, I was probably 3, 4, almost 4.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, it was just like, yep. And, it wasn't until later I'm like, what the, like, but I mean, it was so, like, I can remember, like I remember. So that was, I mean, there were other paranormal experiences that were like, not so jovial, but that was like, those were some that my grandmother was like, I think probably part of her understood, she's profoundly spiritual, but she would never say that she was understanding it. She would just act like she was playing a little imaginary game with me. But she was definitely tuned in for sure. But yeah, so that was that. And I mean, I know you grew up in, you said the area where you lived, I mean, was a battlefield, right?
Yeah, where my parents' house is and where my house is now, because I bought the house next door, was an actual battlefield. So the Civil War battle, I'm sure you've heard of Sherman's March to the Sea, where he goes down across like Tennessee, Alabama, goes into Atlanta, and then down to Savannah, right?
Yeah.
Well, right before he got to Atlanta, he come down through where here it is battle. And so this land was like just a big farmland. And in the 1864, and they had the battle here. And of course, it was, really bad. All of them were. But they, I didn't find out till like way later that they just, after the, war, like nobody in the South wanted to talk about it, of course. So they're like, there was no like, we should preserve this, but like, they're like, we ain't preserving shit. Like we just, nothing to see here, folks. And just kind of, like just start building houses on top of stuff and, rebuilding Atlanta. And they just built houses on top of whatever. So if you go outside and start digging, you're going to find bullets, musket balls, or like cannonball, like all kinds. There's stuff everywhere on the property. And so I didn't really know about that until I was a little bit older. And then I like started learning about it in school, because again, like nobody wants to talk about it in the South, I guess. I imagine if you like went to Germany, or they're not going to have like Nazi stuff or something, this is just something you don't want to really talk about, I guess. So like here, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, there was a battle. And anyway, so I didn't know much about it until I did some of my own research. But as a kid, again, things happened to me and I didn't know why. So like I would wake up because I could hear gunshots or cannons, like just like when you hear in the movies. Like when I watch a movie, I'm like, oh my God, I know that sound. I would hear it. And when you wake up, but you're not like fully awake, I heard it. And then I would wake up.
Yes.
I'd like, what the hell? And then I would run to the window, and it would slowly start fading away. And there's nothing. There's like nothing outside. So I was always like, what am I hearing? And then later I learned like, oh, there's a battlefield. And I'm like, well, that's obviously what I was hearing. I just didn't know. And then I started to see some of them as I got older, some of the soldiers, which was not a pleasant experience. Even talking about it now, I'm in the house and I'm like, like I just like, even when I talk about them, I just feel kind of a weird, whatever. But I've seen a couple of them, didn't like. And then I had somebody stop by just last June, and before I left to go on tour, and was like, hey, do you mind if I dig up some of your yard? And I was like, yeah, my dad's already kind of went over it. He's like, well, I've got this really cool new metal detector, and it was like a whatever $5,000 thing or more, I don't know. And he's like, I'll split with you whatever I find. Girl, he was out there 20 minutes and found 6 bullets.
Stop.
And one of them was like 5 feet in front of my kitchen window. And he's like, boop, here's one. Boop, here's one. Boop, here's one. He's like, I found 6. And he was there for 20 minutes. And he's like, pick out 3. He's like, because I told him, I was like, yeah, you can hunt. I was like, but, let's split it. So he gave me 3 and he's like, okay, I'll come back another time. I got some stuff to do. I was like, oh my God. Like it was right there. Like when he dug, it's like that deep in the ground.
Wow.
It's not like a dinosaur, like ancient, like feet. It's like, it's just here. And I'm like, what's under my house? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of energy here that's not good. And then what was more than the battle, which was awful, was a plane crash. Did I tell you about the plane crash? Oh my God.
Yeah.
There's a whole National Geographic thing about it that you can watch. It's called Southern Airways Flight 7 something. I don't remember. So in 1977, there was a flight from Birmingham to Atlanta. Have you heard about it?
When you said that.
Southern Airways?
Yes, when you said the 1977, like around that time period. Yeah, I have heard about this, but I don't know. Like, I knew it was really bad. I knew that it's like one of the worst flight crashes ever.
It is. It's one of the worst in the United States. Because 80 people died, and a lot of them were on the ground because the plane just. So it was going from Birmingham to Atlanta. It had a lot of military people on it, and it was flying, and the radar wasn't as advanced as it is now. But because of what happened, they've made the radar better because there was a really, really bad storm, tornado, all this stuff. And when the pilots at the time are watching the radar, if they see a hole, like in the radar fuzz or whatever, they try to go to that because it looks like that's not where a storm is. Well, in actuality, the hail was so thick that on the radar, it looked like there was a hole in the sky, like a safe place, but they really flew into hail. There was hail like this big, the size of softballs. So when they flew into it, the jet engines sucked in the hail and destroyed the fans of the engines, destroyed the engine. They lost one engine, they lost the next engine. When they lost the first engine, they started going down. And this is a big plane, like big passenger plane. This isn't like a little Cessna. Like there was almost 100 people on the plane.
Oh my God.
So they couldn't get to Atlanta. So they were like, okay, there's a little airport over here. Let's try to get to it. And they couldn't make it. And they landed on the road and landed on top of some cars. Fortunately, squished some people, landed. There was a little gas station here with one little pump. The wing hit that, broke the wing off, which of course the wing's full of fuel, blew up the gas station, blew up the plane. The plane starts rotating on fire and stops right before my house.
Get out of here.
So I have pictures. I'll send them to you after we do this. Maybe I'll send them to you. Maybe you can put them up while we're talking.
Yeah, I can put them in.
If you look at the pictures, you see the road, the highway, the plane, where it kind of came off, where it landed, and I'll show you my parents' driveway and my driveway. And that, to me, because it was so recent, my parents bought the house in 1981, so it's fairly new. So the energy was more new than the Civil War. So that actually affected me more. And that one was weird because I started seeing things that I didn't want to see, but I really blocked them out. And then I said, I don't want to see that. People burned up and stuff. So I said very vocally at a little kid, I don't want to see this. And then I just stopped seeing it. To this day, I don't want to see them because it's the worst thing ever. It's worse than the war. So, but again, I would be sleeping and I would hear crash, 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 all this stuff. And then I would hear sirens and stuff. And I would wake up again and be like, oh my God, there's 1 million cops out there. And I look out and there's nothing. And I'm like, what is this? Now, I didn't find this out until 1997. I was waiting for the school bus to go to high school. I was a freshman or something. And I go out to the end of the driveway and I look and there's news, people at the news sitting there. And I look and they're all the way down the highway, there's people setting out these reefs. And it was the 20th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And I came out and I was like, I'm just trying to wait for the bus. I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we're here for the 20th anniversary of the plane crash. And I was like, what? I was like, what now? They're like, the plane that crashed. And he was like, there was a historian there. And he's like, this is where it landed. This is where it is. And the people of the survivors were there, laying reefs out, in the yard. And I was like, what the hell? So when I came home, I was like, Dad, I was like, was there a plane crash? He's like, oh yeah, I didn't tell you about that. I was like, no. And then that really freaked me.
Dads. Can we just, dads like, oh, it's like.
He was just kind of like, well, it happened before you were born. Who cares? And I'm like, I care because my whole life I've been like seeing and hearing and like, what? So, yeah, that one freaks me out the most. But you know what's weird is now I feel those spirits have crossed over.
I think,
and I've tried to like, once I kind of calmed down and got older and was like, okay, nothing's going to hurt you. Like, it's fine. People are just confused. Those people, like in the crash, they're like sad, but like as they were going down, like they kind of accepted it and moved on. The soldiers that are still here are like pissed. Like they were like, we're going to go to war and we are not going to get shot and we're going to get some Yankees and like that energy. And then they got killed and they're so young. They're so young.
But that's the thing. People don't realize like just how young those guys were. Like some of them were 14.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that were fighting in, the Civil War. I mean, it's really horrible.
Yeah. And they're still mad that they got shot because they're like, okay, today's the day, there's a battle. I'm not going to get shot. And then they did. And they're like, no, I wasn't supposed to. And that's still that I can feel their energy and I can feel them talk to me sometimes. But I tell them, I can't see you. I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it. I don't want to see you. I'm tired of that.
Well, Gettysburg is...
I will never go to Gettysburg. I've been to every battle place, but I can't even drive past it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty well. When we were, when I was on Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey. I'm sorry, I'm sitting here talking like people know what Ringling, but anyway, the circus. So we lived in a train. Anyway, I know you know this. I'm telling Yeah. But I remember we had to like how the train you have to wait for other trains to pass. Like it depends on like whatever your priority is, like if you're on priority line 1 or like track 1 or whatever. So we had to like yield to like, I don't know, 2 or 3 trains. And I remember it was in the middle of the night and my good friend, who's still my very good friend, Rudy, who's so funny, dude. But anyway, he's kind of like a skateboarder guy, dude. He's kind of like that. So we used to hang out in my train room and we would watch movies on my laptop and we would eat like pepper jack cheese and chips and, junk food. And we would watch like old, like Scarface or something. Right. And Rudy was so funny though. And so anyway, we were sitting in there and I'm like, man, we've been stopped for a long time, And at that point, the speaker on my laptop, or not the speaker, the microphone on the laptop, started going like doing garbly sounds through it. Like it was acting like as a receiver and was like transmitting like weird sounds that sounded like gunshots and cannons and through the thing. Yeah. So I'm like, and immediately I'm like, nee. I'm like, where are we? And I went down to one of the people who like worked on the train or whatever. And I was like, where are we at right now? And they're like, oh, dude, like, look out there. And we were at Gettysburg. Like we were right on the outside of Gettysburg right there. And dude, listen, that was a freak show that whole night. I mean, strange sounds like, knocking on the side of the train. Yeah. Very, very odd. And the thing is that trains create a huge amount of electromagnetic energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is only fueling whatever is there. And some people, I've heard the argument of like, oh, it's just residual energy. I think that there's residual there. Yes. But I also believe that, which actually we'll get into right now because I wanted to say something about what you said. But yeah, there's residual energy and then which just kind of plays like a tape, right?
Right.
And then you have, disembodied, us, right? that have not, time is not, it doesn't exist for them either, right? Like it's not going by at the rate like it is us. You're like, why would anyone stick around that long? Well, it's not that long to them. And that's one of the things I wanted to say, because like you were talking about the plane crash and all that. And, trauma is like one of those things that in war or whatever it is, it's like, well, why would, everybody in war that dies in war would be traumatized? Well, not necessarily, because there are some people who have resigned themselves to, like, if you talk to anybody who was like a special forces guy or something like that, they knew that the stakes were already high because they're like an elite team that's going in. They've got to do an impossible mission, and they know there's like a 50-50 chance. So they're like, their free will's already involved in that. And they're like, yeah, well, there's a big chance I'm not coming home.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of the wars that were like, had a lot of ideologies behind them, like Civil War, Revolutionary War, even World War II, stuff like that, where there was just a impulse that followed those things because it was more about an idea instead of, it was like, propaganda existed then too, right? So I think, so I think that there were, people who didn't factor in the risks like someone would that's like a special operator in, SEAL Team 6, or, you know what I mean? So, they're like, I'm doing my part, But also you have areas like Georgia, for instance, which I have always said that Atlanta and that whole area there, that there's something weird about that area.
Like, it's on the 33 and that third parallel. It's the same as the pyramids. Is that it's very weird. Atlanta's weird energy.
Atlanta's weird. And Dallas, it's on the same one as Dallas.
It's the same. Dallas, yes, it's the same.
Literally, that right where Kennedy was shot is like that, like right, literally through that downtown area is that cross, like right on that. That's where the Masonic lodge is. That's where all of that is.
Wow.
Is right there. Which y'all out there, bookmark that, because I got stories about that whole area. Boy, that whole area, that's probably volume 2. But anyway, because Dallas is a very odd place, and a lot of people don't know about it to the extent that I do, because I'm just like that. And I had access to a lot of buildings down there, and worked down there for a number of years. And I'll tell you, there's a lot that people don't know about Dallas, but God, just so much. But yeah, Georgia in general, I know Savannah is probably, I think they said Savannah is one of the most haunted cities in the world.
Yeah,
right.
I've seen some stuff in Savannah.
Yes. And so you've got that, and then I've had weird experiences in Atlanta. Very odd experiences. Like, when I was on the road with Ringling, I was injured. That's where I got injured, was in Atlanta. And that was like a weird series of events that happened that led to that. That's also the same year that the zebras got out.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, the zebras got out.
Right, which we now know that there was a certain organization that did that. Which I'll bookmark all that for another. I actually did a podcast where I kind of talked about that. So, but yeah, that was horrifying, and so sad. But like, yeah, it's always been a strange place. But like, there's that. What is that mountain that's over there? They call it a mountain.
Stone Mountain.
Yes,
it's basically solid granite. It's like a lava bubble.
It's
one of the 7 natural wonders of the world.
That's where I was going. So
there's some weird stuff that used to go on top of that mountain.
Well, I know there are. Well, granite, like the Great Pyramids and all that. Like granite is what they call living stone.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got granite's like a composite, right, of quartz and all of these crystals and minerals that are like, I mean, they're like, conductors, right?
Yeah.
Of energy.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. They conduct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And Georgia's like that whole area is just, I mean, it just sits on that. Like underneath,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's dirt, but you go further, mm,
Oh, there's
it's
granite
quartz, granite
everywhere. There's
everywhere.
quartz everywhere. There's granite everywhere. Like I can
Mhm.
go outside right now and dig up some quartz minimum this big, and even rose quartz. Like it's
Yeah,
everywhere.
which is so cool. But it's people are into crystals and stuff now, but there's a whole thing, really like it's like a data recorder, right? So whatever your intention is on that, data recorder is what's going to be recorded on it. So if something that's super traumatic, like a battle or something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, you've got like the Georgia Guidestones. They were built there for a reason, you
Yeah.
know, and all of that.
I saw them like a year before they got blown up.
Right, which that whole thing is crazy. Anyway, and it's yeah, I remember, God, what a weird, that was a whole thing. But like I think I have a note here about that, about the trauma thing. Hang on. Because see, like, so one of the places where my dad's side of the family, we would go there all the time, but this is like right around I mean, nobody's gonna know where the hell I mean, that's how remote this is. But everybody knows what Schlitterbahn is. It's like the biggest water park in the world, said Matthew McConaughey. But it really is awesome though. So New Braunfels and New Berlin and whatever, and it's all German towns, right? So like my dad's side of the family, they all spoke German like fluently. I didn't understand going on in that house. It was like, oh, dossel, blah, 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 like, and they were just thick, like crazy German accents that were, I just had no clue. But that whole area was like the farmhouse down there was made of limestone and quartz. I mean, that's what it was made of. Now,
Wow.
like you can find bullets and all that stuff. Well, we would go like this in the stream or the creek that was back there and just arrowheads for days,
Yeah.
so many arrowheads that, uh, where did I write this? Hang on. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. We got a lot of
Yeah.
arrowheads around here too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like it's, I mean, it's fertile soil. Like people would move, see all the tribes, they were settling in these areas and Texas is one of those places that's like, there's just, it's such a mixed bag of stuff, but, especially down where I'm talking about, there's some strange goings on. Um, oh yeah. So you said something about like in your neighborhood, like preserving, like they didn't preserve it. They wanted to forget it. Right. Okay. So I often like wonder if by preserving something like Gettysburg, right? If you're not kind of encouraging that to stay stagnant in that thing because
You're
like,
keeping the memory alive.
right.
Mm.
And I kind of wonder if, and I don't want to do a lot of, I know like my biggest flaw is quoting a bunch of stuff that's like I've studied, but on just a gut level right now, not getting into that, I've always felt that like, like we as humans and our free will as these like amazing souls, like in physical bodies, right? We create, like, I believe that that's how we are made in the image of God, is that we are creators too.
Yep.
So, but the one way that we create is over the mineral kingdom. So like your rocks and stone and metals and we build things and we terraform like the planet in that way, and make something, that was something exist that did not exist prior to that, in a town or a whatever. And so, and we have to use the consciousness of the mineral kingdom to do that. So like stone,
Yes.
metals, alloys, whatever you want to call it. And I've often wondered if these places that are preserved as historical things and you can't touch them and you can't blah, 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 like battlegrounds and all of that, because we have a thing of like, oh, it's disrespectful to not do that. But you know this, I know this, but let's tell them that is like, what is a ghost, right? Okay. Let's just go ahead. Let's do it.
Yep. Yeah.
Here we go. Okay. And please interrupt me, please, like, because that's sometimes the only way to make me stop. Okay. For real. I know a lot of people think, like, well, you just die and then you go to heaven or hell. Okay.
I'm laughing at the accent.
Well, that's usually the people who say it. So it's a lot more complicated. It's a lot more. I'm telling you, I'm not sure you're talking about.
She went there. She totally just went there.
I'm going there because I need to stop. And I do. Because yes, there is those polarities exist, obviously. But it's, again, you're not dealing with like our version of time and whatever. So, some of the skeptics out there when it comes to paranormal are like, why the heck would, anyone want to stay in their, bullet-ridden body from the Civil War? Okay. But this is kind of where I have to get into like the study stuff. We have our physical body. Okay. So I'll use two different types of language. We have our physical body. And for those who are more into the traditional way of thinking, you have your soul and then you have your spirit or oversoul, right? The other line of thinking, you have your physical body, you have the astral body, and you have the etheric body. Same thing, different words to describe it.
Or could you even say like conscious, subconscious, super subconscious?
Yeah, or higher self or whatever.
Well, yeah, something like that.
You could say that, yeah. Yeah. It's three. It's the Holy Trinity, like everything is, you can get into the math of stuff too, which is a deal. But so like when we're in our physical body, we have our like I like chicken and dumplings, whatever, or key lime pie, whatever. And that's like I've got a craving for chocolate or whatever. So we can act out those desires because we have a physical body to do that. Okay. The etheric body, which is the highest one, that's like a filament, like an egg around the physical body and then the astral body, right? So when you're dreaming at night, people, and you're going places and doing things, that's your astral body that's doing that. Your physical body's laying on the bed asleep. Your astral body is going out, going places, doing things, okay? And is acting and is figuring out the whatever it is, whether or not you're having a dream about a problem you're trying to solve in your life or whatever. So the astral body thinks in colors, it symbols, instinct, intuition. Like when you're in the dream world, you're gonna be in a more symbolic universe, but it's symbols and colors and smells and sights and sounds and everything that you recognize in your physical life. Your etheric body is like the sheath that's around your physical body while your astral body's out partying. Okay. So the etheric's holding it down, right? And if you didn't have that, whatever happened to you in your dream state, and I know some of you guys are going to find this hard to believe, but everybody's had that dream where they've been falling or whatever, and they wake up and they're like that, right? So if you didn't have something protecting your physical body while you're in the sleep state, and you went off and you did something crazy in your dream state, there's a pretty high likelihood that you would be actually physically injured when you woke up on some level. And that's, it depends on like, it's not that can't happen anyway, but it's the etheric body's like the membrane of the inside of an egg, right? So it's like it'll heal that, but like, we can damage that by being in bad places with bad vibes around bad people. It's like a compression, and it can really start to like affect us physically. We can feel physically ill when we're in like a really negative place. And so anyway, I say all that to say this is that one of the ways that I've heard it described from people who are brilliant that are no longer living, but that, amazing philosophers and mystics and everything else. And I mean, we can even go biblically with it too. There's some stuff that points at it, but, your desires are still present in the astral body. So if you die, right, your physical body's dead, your astral body is supposed to move on, right? And everything, but it still has free will. It's still you, right? Your etheric is the part that will fall off by the wayside because it's no longer needed, because it doesn't have to protect the physical body anymore. So it can go and move onward and upward, but your astral body is still there. And if you are trapped in trauma or desire or anger or whatever it is, it's like an unquenchable thirst. So like we get to like quench our thirst when we're in our physical body because we have a vehicle to go and do that. When you're in your astral body, you can't actually quench the desire, whatever it is. So if the desire is strong enough, like with drug addicts or alcoholics or whatever, those are typically, like in the Far East, they call them hungry spirits.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a horrifying term, but that's accurate. They're hungry because they can't fulfill them.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's really what hell is like. Is like, you can't do anything about the way you feel or the way you still have all of the feeling and the rage, only it's 10 times worse. And you're feeling it on a much more intense level than you did in your physical body. And then you have no way to act on that. Yeah. And that's how these ghosts or disembodied people get twisted up. And then there's always something else waiting in the wings to go, hey, I got a proposition for you. And that's where you get into the darker stuff of the other unseen stuff that is waiting for those souls to not move on, to then have henchmen that will, work on the living to try to, because, and then I'll say this, what's the food source of these things is fear. Yeah. That's the food source. So everybody that gets freaked out and they want to get freaked out, they go to these crazy places and they want to get scared and they want to have these horrible experiences because it's like, you're fueling it. You're literally feeding that.
And it's going to continue to stay there as long as people keep coming. On. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm all for like, checking out, like being curious about like, a place that you've heard something about, but some of these haunted tours and all this kind of stuff like that, it's like, people are making money off of something, but it's also kind of sad because you're fueling like disembodied, people that are like, they're irritated and they don't know, they can't communicate, or they're trying to communicate. And the only way that they can is by doing something crazy, with then just like a snake eating its own tail. Then more people come and more people come. It's just like, oh, I guess this is what I do now. You know, I'm my own theme park as a ghost, whatever. But, you know, it's, I think that's like the gateway drug into trying to understand the unseen is people having those experiences, and they want to have those experiences to prove something to themselves. But there's way more productive ways of doing that than going into a place and stirring up trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but there's,
go ahead. Good. No, I was just going to say, I had a few things I wanted to add to that, if you don't mind.
No, please.
So I think it's important for everyone to know that we as humans all have free will. When we pass, we still have free will. And at any moment, you can go to the light. But you don't want the light to people, especially if they are addicted to things, is so bright, and they're scared of what's on the other side. They're scared of what they're going to face, which there's nothing to fear, but they don't know that. So they look away from the light, and they want to stay, like you said, feeding off of these other things. That's why you're going to find these ghosts in darker places or in scary places or places like that, because that's where that fear is, and that's what they're eating on, and it's away from the light. So having said that too, I've noticed as I've gotten much older and have increased the light within me, that I'm not seeing that stuff as much, and I'm seeing other things. And I want to get into that as well too. So like the fact that you have free will even when you pass, because like I'll try to say this real quick. I don't want to say that I understand what it's like to be a ghost. I've never had a near-death experience, but I had an out-of-body experience. And I'll just say it real quick so I can help people understand. But like, I was very, very, very sick one time, and we had to perform. I had 2 shows. I went out, did a show. I was doing aerial. Okay. So hanging upside down, all this crap. I had like pneumonia. Got off, went behind the curtain, threw up, went inside, took a nap. I had like 2 hours before the next show, and I was so sick and just all that stuff, all that gross stuff. And I remember waking up, and I couldn't hear anything. And I was looking around, and I was like, why am I so close to the ceiling? And I turned around and looked behind me, and I was about 3 or 4 feet above my body. And my ex-husband had me by the shoulders and was shaking me, like standing up, shaking me and screaming my name. I could see his mouth moving. And the first thing I thought was like, that's not me. This is me. Because that personality and the way of thinking is the exact same. It's exact same. It doesn't, you don't die and you're like, oh, I've just been enlightened and I know everything. And then I was like, I better go back in. And I was, of course, pulled stomach down, which we'll get into, silver cord and all that one day. But when I got back in, of course, it was awful because I was like, oh God, I forgot I'm sick and I have a headache and I feel horrible. But I never forgot how being out of this, I was the same thoughts, the same, everything the same. And then as I got older, I started watching a lot of videos, and I recommend this to anybody. Look up videos on people who have had near-death experiences, because they've all said the same thing, which again, I watch because it makes me feel less crazy. And they all say the same thing when they've passed, the same humor, thoughts, everything, the same thing. And they always look back and they're like, that's not my body. This is my body. And they're like, wait. So, I don't think I'm just saying that to say like what you said about like the addictions or the desires, and that could be even not wanting to leave a loved one. It's not like, not all ghosts are just addicts or whatever. Like if there's anything in this plane that you aren't ready to turn around from and go into the light, it's going to keep you here. And again, you have free will to stay here. But I do, if we have a second, I just want to talk about the difference between what I call a ghost and a spirit.
Oh yeah.
So I've had all these interactions with ghosts, and then and there is such a difference. They're here and they look more like people. And then I've been visited by a spirit who has crossed over, and that is so different. Like not everything is a ghost or whatever you want to call it. So long story short, my grandfather passed away in 1998. He came to visit me, and he was a being of light. So when you see a ghost, it's like you're looking at me. It's just me and the wall, okay? When you see a spirit who's crossed over, has come to visit you, is radiating light. There's no, it's watery almost. There's no,
Yes, it's watery.
This is skin and this is this. There's no lines kind of, but you see, anybody who's seen one knows what I'm trying to explain, I guess. And you know what I'm talking about, Melodee, but.
Oh, for sure.
And those are the ones that are welcoming. So I don't want anybody to ever be like, oh my God, I saw this and it was so scary. Or if they see it after they hear this, to be like, oh my God, it's a ghost. Because you really need to know the difference. Because if you see something that is radiating light and is watery, you need to pay attention. Because that is someone who has come back from the other side to send you a message. My grandfather sent me a message to tell me everything was okay, not to worry. And I'd love to get into that story. It's kind of a long story, but people really, this is something I didn't know until later. They're just like, you die and you're a ghost and you're scary. And it's like, there's so many levels to that, that people need to be educated about.
Oh, 100%. And yes, I told you, did we talk about this? But yeah, my grandfather, who was everything to me, 1998. That was my year too.
Oh yeah, you told me the same year. Yeah.
Whoa, what a year that was. And I got a visitation from him, and he was also he was so funny. Like, he had so much humor, but, yeah, it was very real. I was like awake, but not awake. And he was like, met me in this, like, it was like we had like a little bubble of like privacy, and, but yeah, he was radiant and happy and trying to like make me feel better about everything. And he said, he called me Booger. So he's like, man, Booger. Then he goes, they got everything here. He's like, you want to go to Six Flags? Like, you can go to Six Flags. Like, he was telling me all this stuff. And he's like, we can do whatever we want. Like, we can have an adventure, And it was really interesting because I said, well, where's Grandma? Because she passed like shortly after that, just from like broken heart. I mean, she just willed herself to go. Yeah. Essentially. And he goes, she's got important work to do. He said, I said, so she's not with you having fun? He's like, oh no. He's like, she's all business. She had some important things that she had to go attend to. And I went, okay. He said, yeah, she's kind of a big deal. And I went, I knew it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, well, do you see her? Like, he was connected to her, but it was more like she came into this life in the physical because she had been non-physical before in his other existences and tried to like help him out, and was like, I guess I'm just gonna have to calm down and marry you. And that's just, yeah. But she's the reason I got adopted. She's the reason I have my name. Yeah, she was very big on like name resonance and like what your essence was supposed to be. And so, but she didn't say it that way. She wasn't fruity like I am about it. But yeah, and that was an amazing, like those visitations, like Jamie was saying, it's like there's a huge, vast difference between that. And so, here's what it's like to a ghost. First of all, a ghost, it's like if you walked, okay, it's the difference between, let's say you're at like a crowded place, like let's just say Walmart. And you see just like a sea of people who are just kind of vacant and they're just like, and whatever. And then let's say in the middle of all those people, you have one person who's like wearing like bright yellow and is like, okay, that person is like what a spirit is. The rest where it's just kind of like drony and like the beige and like down and low energy, low everything. Ghosts have that feeling. It never feels positive. It doesn't matter if it doesn't have to feel negative, but it's just not. It's just like more of the same. It's bleh. It's like, I don't know. It's not it's not an inspirational thing, you feel like heavy around if you have an encounter with a ghost, it's going to feel heavy, even if they're not, and even if it's not a negative thing. Spiritual visitations and spirit visitations is entirely that you just don't want to end. It's just like, God, that felt so amazing, like you just feel invigorated by it, and it's brings peace and closure and joy and reverence, and it's such a difference. It's such a difference. And I think, I'm glad you said all of that, because I do believe that people will lump all that in together. Big time.
I used to. Okay, I'll tell mine real quick, because I remember earlier you said not to skim on stuff, and I'm kind of feeling a download to like, I need to just say it. It's what I hear. Just say it. So, me and my grandfather were super, super close, blah, blah, blah. And when he passed, I was so afraid I was going to see him, because I was still a teenager at the time, and I was seeing like spirits that are ghosts at my house, and I just didn't want to see him like that. And I was really like, I would go to the bathroom and just be like this, because I'm like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to see you. Because if I saw him as a ghost, it would just be a huge reminder that he had died, right? So that was my thinking. Well, I'm at my grandmother's house, and there's like tornado sirens going off. It's thunder and lightning, everything. And my grandma's like, I'm scared. Can you come sleep in my room? And I'm like, hell to the no. Like, you want me to go in your room and sleep in your like bed where he slept? No. That's crazy. And she was like, please, I'm scared. I don't want to be alone. And I'm like, I guess she's used to sleeping with him. And this was like 2 months after he died.
Oh, yeah.
Fine. So I was like, fine. So I went, got there, and I'm like, oh my God. And like, I look at the dresser, and like, all his stuff is still there, like his watch and this. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to lay here. I hate this. She finally went to sleep, turned the TV off. I fell asleep. I woke up. And when I woke up, I noticed there was something very, very bright. So I'm looking at the bed. I'm on the left side of the bed. Something very, very bright over here at the end of the bed. And I was like, woke up and I was like, what the hell is that? And I was like, well, the window's here, and it wasn't really formed. And I was like, well, maybe the moonlight or something is a full moon, and there's light shining in and it's reflecting. Cause I've got to be like super smart, and like, I'm like Spock. Like, I will try to disprove everything. Everything's logical or illogical to me. So I'm like, I saw it and I'm like, what is that? And I was like, maybe it's this and that. And I'm like, it's raining. There's no moonlight coming in. And then I was like, oh, here's it goes. And so I like pulled the covers over my head, and I was like, no. I was like, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. And then I was like, I had to talk myself like 5 minutes. I was like, okay, you just woke up. You probably didn't see what you thought you saw. Just look again. So I peek again, and now it's moved to the middle of the bed, and now it's definitely head, shoulders. And I'm like, and I pull it and go in my face. I'm like, no. I'm like, I don't want to see this. I'm scared. I'm scared of the unknown. I'm scared of dying. I don't know what it's like. What happens? I was like brought up in religion, but I'm at that age where I'm starting to like question stuff more. And I'm like, I don't know what happens when you die. I don't want any of this. And then I was like, I finally told myself, or something told me, it was like, Jamie, it's your grandfather. It's not a soldier. It's not a burnt person from the plane. It's your freaking grandfather. What's he going to do to you? Like, y'all were best friends. Stop. And I was like, God, like, what am I doing? It's my grandfather. Okay, fine. So I was like, God dang it. I was like, okay, fine. And I was like, if you have something to say, then just what? And girl, now was at the right edge of the bed, complete face, eyes, nose, was wearing what he wore in the casket, which was like a suit. But I think he did that so I would know it was him, because normally he's like a jeans and t-shirt kind of guy. And nothing from the knees down, which I've noticed most ghosts don't have anything from the knees down, which is weird. Ghosts and spirits alike. That's one thing they have in common. And they don't blink. Okay? Ghosts and spirits, nobody blinks in the afterlife. They just which I'm like, blink. So anyway,
Right.
so I see him fully formed. And I'm like, oh my God, this is really my grandfather. And I was like, okay, what? And he goes, I know you're scared, telepathically, of course. This is what it feels like to be dead. And he sits down on the bed and he puts his hand out and he lays it on the end of the bed. And this peaceful, there's no English, there's no words I can make with my human mouth to describe the feeling that went from my toes up my body. And it was, I know everybody says this, but it was love to the infinity degree.
Yeah.
Home, peace, the absence of gravity. Okay. It was just, and I was like, wow. I was like, this is what it's like. I love it. It's great. And he's like, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear about anything. Everything's going to be okay. I'm going to watch you. I'm going to watch your grandma. I'm going to try not to get emotional. And he was like, it's okay. And I was like, it's like, okay. I was like, thank you for showing me that. And then I was like, okay. And I turned over and went to sleep. Went right to sleep, which is crazy because, you know, I didn't sleep for 2 days after that because I was like, oh my God, this really happened.
It's so cool.
That's the best gift anybody has ever given me, was to let me understand what it was like to be dead and it, not to be dead, but to be on the other side. And it was like, I can only say like home, like, oh, this is it. This is the feeling I've been missing my whole life. And then I've had a problem with gravity ever since. When I came back, everything still to this day is heavy.
Yes.
This picking up my arm is heavy. The only time I feel a little bit like that is in a swimming pool, or when I'm swimming, I'm like, oh God, I hate gravity. Like everything's so heavy here and dense. And so that's my visitation story.
Oh man, that's so cool. That's really cool. I could see all that right in my head, like the way you described it and everything, including the room. And that's really cool. I know what you mean about the gravity thing entirely. Because, man, yeah, gravity sucks.
It's awful.
It is awful.
They say that's why we age. You know that? Have you ever read like what is it, like the Universe in a Nutshell, I think it was, or what was the other Brief History of Time? Any of those Stephen Hawking books? There's something in there where he talks about like a twin paradox, where if you took two twins identical, and right after they were born, you left one here on Earth and you left one out in space, right?
Oh yeah.
And then like 30, 40 years later, you bring them back together. The one in space looks like a teenager. Gravity is what gives us wrinkles, is what ages us. If there wasn't gravity, we would never get old, is the theory.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's that. And I think that we have a belief that we get old.
Well, yeah, I think, yeah. And so like me and you are very, I don't want to like toot our own horn or something, but for the age that we are, we look pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Just saying. I don't think I'm beautiful or anything, but I see people I went to school with and I'm like, and then people are like, why do you look so good for your age and this and that? And I'm like, well, because I'm not, well, so when people turn 40, they have an over the hill party. And I'm like, you're in your prime. Like, stop thinking you're old and like, oh, well, this hurts because like, oh, girl, I have the age shaming.
I hate it.
It needs to be done with. It needs to be done with.
I will never, you will never hear me say OLD, because I won't say it. I resigned myself a long time ago that that's just not gonna, because that it's like a thing, right? It's a thing that people, and here's what's really funny is, yeah, I mean, gravity does play a part in, like, you know, obviously, in our process, but it is more, I mean, it really is a belief system too that we have, we've got going on here. You know, I mean, if anybody really understood how intention is really everything, I mean, if you really like understood it, you know, then you would never just say what, something that would damn yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And okay, I'm not skimming. Here we go. So let me just get this out.
Get it, girl.
There's really nowhere to begin. So my supernatural experiences early on, a mixed bag, but I'm one of those people that have seen things that, if even people who are wanting to see things, if you saw the stuff that I saw regularly, you'd have a heart attack. And so, and this was not just like, oh, every once in a while. This was probably, I'm going to say conservatively, every other day. Every night, like usually every night, tormented, little kid, tormented, by things that, I think I've only seen something that horrifying. Like, really, there's no movie that does it justice.
Tough it.
I've seen things that come close to it, but never. And so I had to do battle, all the time, every day. And it was, and then I had I had good stuff too. If I didn't have the good stuff, angelic, I was power flanked with like a super team. Okay. Cause I wouldn't be sitting here if that wasn't the case. Now, why that was happening to me, I don't know if we've got enough time for that today. But we all come in with a set of, with an expertise that we are carrying over into the life that we have now. Okay. And I think in my case, things were quite complicated. And I've had it explained to me in three major out of body experiences, where I was like, I need to know why I had to go through all of that, though. Like, I need to know what that was about, because you can't have friends, right, when that stuff's going on. And I would try to tell people that would come over, like, hey, there's a few, if we're going to like play fun games, whatever, do not go in there. If we're doing hide and seek, just don't be hiding in that area over there. And, people were like, didn't listen. So I had one friend that, unfortunately saw the thing. And so what is that thing? What was that thing? Well, it wasn't a ghost, although I saw them all the time too. I saw ghosts all the time too, for sure, all the time. But ghosts were like, no, whatever. The other stuff was there. And I think in the Christian world and the, more that sort of thing, you would call it, a demon, but you would say, it was a higher up one. In the, Islamic world, they would say it was a jinn, but not like a regular jinn that's, like there's regular ones, right? That are just like, whatever. They have free will too, by the way, which is horrifying. But yeah, this was more like what's called an ifrit and I always go more to it was more of a jinn route, even though I was not in the Middle East when this occurred. But that was more of the feeling was ancient, had free will, had fire behind the eyes, and was just damned. There's again, I've seen maybe one movie that's had something that was very similar in it, and that's pretty damn close. And it's ironically enough, what are those movies? The ones with the guy. It's anyway. There's the kid, and he goes out of body when he astral travels when he goes to sleep. You know the horror movies. Is it The Conjuring?
Mm-mm. No, that one's about ghosts.
Huh?
So that one's about ghosts. Maybe Insidious?
Insidious.
Yeah.
It's a thing that's like black that's in the back. It's like this, and it's got like the red, that. So that's close.
Mm-mm.
But that's close. But this is what I
No,
dealt
thank
with.
you. No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm sorry you saw that, but thank God I can't see that stuff because I don't think I could.
This was after me. Like this was like it was there. It was like it trekked. It also came. It came with hellhounds. They were outside. So we would have livestock shredded. And I would see them, and they were like dire wolves and foaming, and I knew exactly what they were at a young age, and I was like, they're hellhounds, like, and they were trackers. They would find me no matter where I was, and that other thing was like would send them. Okay, and so everybody out there, before you take me to an insane asylum, okay, this is real, and it was horrible. And I've seen maybe 2 people on anything I've ever seen ever that have had experiences like that. And then ironically enough, those people are either like now in their life are exorcists or like very high, like there's a monk, the Tibetan monk that is very famous that talks about those experiences.
Wow.
So it's like, I always felt like, oh, well, at least I'm in good company, like whatever. But,
with the other 2 people on the entire planet. Yeah.
No, I think there's more of us for sure, but
yeah. Hopefully, who knows? Hey, if you had seen that stuff, put it in the comments.
Yeah, I've seen, there's one person now, a lot of people have seen what's called shadow people. They're horrifying too.
Yeah.
But now they're interdimensional. Yeah, they're interdimensional. They are not ghosts. They are not, they're like low. So they're like in a lower astral realm. And also there are some what's called shadow people that are not, they're like a very advanced, I've seen, I don't know, 1,000 of them in my life. I can't count.
Oh God.
Like at least 1,000. I mean, this close in my face, sink in the bed, doing that, like all that. This was like regular. It was regular situation. I'll tell you why I don't see any of that. None of that happens to me anymore. So we'll get to the good part. But anyway, so like I said, I'm adopted, all that kind of stuff. And so let me just cut to the chase here. I never knew my biological mother, none of that. Like I was like, at birth adopted, right? Like, well, I'm not adopted, but at birth, like taken away from birth mother. She never held me, none of that. Okay. So it was like closed adoption situation, yada, yada, yada. It wouldn't be till I was an adult that I found out that she had a very, like it was published in the paper and everything, the story, and there's people that back it up. There was a story about the night that I was born, and she was kind of irresponsible, obviously. And anyway, and so but she was messing around. She had a boyfriend who's not my biological father. That was not who that was. And that guy actually is a aerospace engineer at Lockheed Martin. Hello, shout out. And I've actually reached out to him because I wanted to confirm whether or not this crazy story actually happened, and stuff like that. So anyway, it did. But she had a very crazy experience. So they had an old car anyway. The car kept breaking down, and she was supposed to, you know, she wasn't supposed to be partying or doing anything like that, right? But she was out, and they were going to take this cool old car like on a night drive and everything. And this guy had been working on it a long time. And anyway, they were out in the middle of actual nowhere. And that's kind of the way it is in Texas. It's like, I mean, you can drive and drive and drive and drive, there's like nothing, especially back then. So anyway, the car breaks down. They're in the middle of the nowhere. And this situation happened 3 times, by the way, that night. And someone shows up, like they didn't see the lights come in, nothing. Shows up in a yellow car, which I have a thing with yellow. That's always been a deal. The car is a Starshine. That was the make and model of the car, was a Starshine. And I was born in June, so it's real hot in Texas in June. Like, that's an understatement. And anyway, he was wearing like a leather jacket. So like, y'all know what a leather jacket is, like 1950s leather jacket. Okay. Real hot in June. Nobody's going to wear that. And yeah, had a leather jacket on, like looked like a 1950s guy, like with the coat, like Hip's Big Boy or something, like kind of that. And definitely not the style at the time, I'm telling you. And anyway, says something like, Judge was like, hey, pop the hood, whatever. And the guy's like, you're not going to be able to do, her boyfriend, you're not going to be able to do anything. Like, this is like a custom deal. Like, I'm telling you, man, we're screwed. Like, can we just get a ride in? And the guy like just does something, like touches the hood of the engine, or touches the engine block, does something. Car, boom, starts it. Okay. They're like, oh, dude, like, we don't know how you did that. Thank you. Like, whatever. And he does like this. And, it's real dark. I mean, no street lights, nothing like that. So it's just like this guy's lights on his car. So he's like backlit, right? And so they never got a good look at his face, anything like that. Well, anyway, without getting whatever, this happens twice, 2 more times. But on the 3rd time, they realize that guy doesn't he had a light for a face. Okay. They're like, have you actually seen this guy's face? And he's like, no. And it's like, it clicked. And they're like, where did he come from? But on the 3rd time, he said, he leaned over and he said, get to the hospital, because the child that you are carrying will be born tonight. This has to go right, because you don't understand what's at stake. This is what was said to her. And like leaned over and said, this kid is important. This isn't about you anymore. And like scared her to death, like, go, like, quit being irresponsible. And I'm misquoting it a little bit on purpose so people won't like find the article and then like go and harass people, because it's a very specific quote and it was published. So she's in the hospital, whatever. She gives birth. She doesn't get to hold me. None of that. I'm taken away. And she was sitting in the window of the hospital and was looking out, and she was like sobbing, and then she looks down and then she sees the guy, and he's radiating out, still has the car, and he goes like this, and he said, thank you. Okay. So like, this is a crazy, crazy story. When I first heard it, it was like literally when I got my adoption file and all that was in there.
Really?
And I was, yeah, the newspaper article, the whole thing was in there.
I want to see it. Send it to me.
I will. And yeah, I've got to go, like, all that stuff's like, it's so important to have it like locked. It's like in a metal freaking safe thing. And it's like, so that was like
you've told me that story before, and I love hearing it, but I never asked
you
how.
The long extended version.
Yeah. Because wasn't there like a famous person who shouldn't be named involved as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, so my question, and everybody else's question probably too, is if you were taking from your mom as soon as you were born, how did you hear the story? All of that was in the paper, but somebody else that when you reconnected with your biological people told you as well, or no?
No, when I was able to legally, there's a whole crazy thing surrounding the adoption, everything. So when I was able to actually get my file opened, and it quite literally like a stack of stuff, I had to go to, like, this is very unusual, and there's going to be people out there that are adopting, they're going to be like, what? We didn't have to do that. Hey, I know. I don't understand it fully why my situation was so weird, because I had to go in front of a judge, and like this judge had to read very uncomfortable things that were in there out loud to unseal it.
Weird.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. So there's a lot of strange things that were surrounding all that. And so then I got like the file from a caseworker who was like fantastic. She was so great. And she said, there's a lot of stuff in here. I don't know how much you want to know or don't want to know. And I was like, well, I know it's going to be weird because I had memories of being passed from, moving car, like through a car window as a baby and seeing the road underneath me. And I'm like, something was going down. Like I was not in the right places, like before I could even speak. So, there's a lot of shuffling around of, and back then there's a lot of black market kind of deals going on.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's a lot of that. But essentially, so how does this lead back to the paranormal stuff? Well, that obviously is paranormal, but
yeah,
I didn't know any of that. So one of the things that, when I had like my big experience, like where everything in the whole world changed for me was, and quite literally like missing time, the whole thing where it's like, where you wake up out of it, you think it's been 2 hours, it's been 3 days, you know what I mean? And then like your phone's got like 500 missed calls and people are about to call the cops and where are you at? And I was living in Los Angeles at the time. And, so, but I had my like big, I think in some circles, they call it the turnover. It's like it's a debriefing sort of, if you need one. And I had that. And it's something I think about every single day. And essentially though, what was going on is like, because that messenger had to come in, angelic messenger, obviously. Because, by the way, here's something really fun fact. Angels never know how to dress for the season. It's a thing. So, like, it's like you might meet your angel unaware. Well, you'll know because they're never going to be dressed. Like, they're cute. They like have like, they're fierce, but they have like a funny thing about like our culture and everything on earth. So like, they won't wear the right stuff, or they'll like, it'll look like they went and like got like a costume. Like they might have like an attraction to like 1950s or something. And they're like, no, I'm a guy that drives a car and knows how to work on cars. Cause they like know the essence of like the fun.
Take on a stereotype or something. Yeah. So that was a question I was about to ask, was who was that? So you just said you believe it was an angel.
For sure, 100%. The name of
Okay.
the story that was published was, you know, like the angel story of blah, blah, blah. So, and like, they're from like kind of a big deal family and, and whatever. And like, it's not, I mean, this was like a known deal, but, very cool story. But yeah, and angel means messenger, right? So, I know this guy because when I had my big experience out of body missing 3 days and whatever, and I was taken back to the deal, and it was like the red carpet was rolled out. It was like slow clap, like the whole deal. And they're like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, hey. And then I saw him, and man, I know it's like, this is my bro. Like,
Yeah.
we have done so many missions together. Oh my gosh. And like I know, like, it's like, like old war buddies or something. Like, that's the way I feel about this guy. And I saw the whole thing of like where I was, which was like at this way station kind of thing. It's like, and like out on one side, there was like what looked like waves like this. And it was like the sea of souls. And so it was souls like from all over that were waiting to basically come into the earth experience to be of service, because this place is super duper important.
Yeah.
This place is super duper important. By the way, as I'm doing this, which is, if y'all hear me stuttering, the thing I'm fighting against in my head is something that I've got to let go of, which is like people thinking I'm crazy. I've got to let go.
I know. That's why we're here for each other. Like, if you think I'm crazy, just turn it off. But
just turn it off.
What we're saying is true.
Off. But I mean, it's as real as like, I mean, this is an experience. This happened. Okay. This is not, anyway, but, so I went up, and by the way, the way this happened is I was living in LA. Here I go again. And I was working like Paramount Studios is right there. I was, lived right off of Melrose, and there's Larchmont. Anybody from LA, you know where that is. Hated every minute of it. Hated it. And, but I had work, everything's cool. But I had like a day where I had like the middle part of the day off before I had to go back into like the wardrobe department and do all this stuff. So I was like, I'm taking, and so my crappy apartment, I laid down on the floor like you do when you live in LA. And I had my little roll out thing, and, I just was going to take a nap. And, that was some nap, because it was not a nap. I was gone. I was gone for a while.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think by the time it was like, at least it was 2 full days and had gone by. So, and I woke up at the same exact time that I would have woke up to go back to my work at the time. So I was like, and they're like, excuse me. I'm like, what? I'm here on time. And they're like, and that's when I realized that it was another day. It was another, like, that's in it. And then that's the real freak out happened, where I was like, because I mean, I knew it was real, but like,
yeah.
So, I was somewhere else. That's all I can say. And it was, this place that, it's like a way station, and there was a control room, big table, and you could see all of the patterns of like what needed to happen, and like how much thought and planning and care is put into each individual person on the planet. I mean, they're like every single soul on this planet here is like got somebody there that is like, that is their intermediary, is trying to like help them along the journey. But this project that we are in here is so unusual and weird. And
yeah, I've heard that.
it is unlike anything else. And there have been so many moments of like a threshold, like a precipice where it could have gone in another direction. And so like my job in this place was to kind of like, I mean, like there's no soul that comes here that is not prepared in some way to come here.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's, based on their experiences, and they have to come in at a certain time. So like if they're coming in, let's say with a knowledge of plants or, a knowledge of this or whatever, and that they've been in, like, let's say soul school. Okay. The classroom there, it's just like we are talking now, but it's like,
yeah,
and they're preparing their thing. They can't come in just like, oh, they're like everything's planned. That's my point. And it was shown. It's like like your mother's going to be here. They want to come in as this. You have your groups that you come in with.
Yeah.
People do. Okay. And so we have to map this right, but you can't just come in like whenever. It's like everything in the whole universe has to, like, that's what astrology really is. It's the energies of that have to be perfect at that exact moment for that exact soul to enter in at that exact point to go where they need to go, even if they're going to be a damn potato farmer. It doesn't matter. It has to be perfect. And so anything that goes against natural law and this natural cycle of the spheres, like, yes, it's accounted for. And there's plan B, C, and D.
Yeah.
Because this group of these people that are like really in the know, that are plotting stuff out and are trying to like, they're accounting for every single possible line of failure. Now, who are these people? It is the angelic realm. Absolutely it is. They're working for the big guy, as you know, but it's the care of what is happening on the planet, and the tremendous amount of, none of us are just like, oh, I'm a human. No, nobody. We all come from everywhere, all over. We've all been here from the very beginning of time itself. I mean, it's not, it's not like, it's so limiting and dense to think that you pop in here for 75 years and then it's like, man, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
never thought that was the case. Yeah.
No. And, and everybody's got a different thing, but the care that's taken for one individual soul is tremendous. But in my case, when I went to this crazy place and missing time, I went into this room where it was like, okay, you've done, like, I set that up before I got here.
Yeah.
I set up a time period where I could yank myself out if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And so I had set up that moment, and it was like, and then I was going to be given the option to continue. Now, if I continued, it's going to be the next level of it. Like how awesome do you want to be? How much stuff do you really want to do? Because the goal was just to get through this. So I was shown me beforehand plotting this, and there was this impossible route, like this impossible thing that had to happen, that like to connect all of these people from all walks of life. And these things had to be connected because the whole tapestry is so intense, like the metaphorically, the tapestry of this planet and how it's held together and what's got to happen here. It's like, you can't have one loose thread over here. And so there was a cycle at that time where this impossible thing that should have been allocated to like 5 people, but there wasn't the ability to do that because of kind of nefarious stuff that was happening on getting in and out. Like on the soul going into a baby body and all of that.
Yeah.
Like there was an energy that was blocking the success of that at that time in certain points. So there was one really crazy plan. And then it was like, okay, well, we've got, and you have hierarchy of souls that are like ready, or people that are ready to be of service. Aye, Captain. But they were all like extremely new and anything. I'm like, I can't send them to do that. There's no way. But I was like responsible for plotting some of this and to do the strategic planning with that guy and like some of the other ones, right? But we were like, that's where we were. That's what we did. It was like mapping out like this incredible vast plan, and I mean, it was it was a way station in and out of this, like our galaxy. That's what it was. I can't say it any more plainly than that. And so I was like, I'll go. And they showed me this, and then they showed like how, like he especially was trying to talk me out of it. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, because there was a big risk of people getting trapped, like in matter, like of forgetting happening, and then and getting caught up in the wheel of karma, and like having unfinished business, and then having to constantly, and then getting a soul like that, getting really corrupted, that wasn't ready for that experience, because it is rough and it is going to be. But I knew what this was, and so I had set up these incredible hallmarks, and we all do it.
Yeah,
everybody out there, synchronicity, that's what it is. Congratulate, pat yourself on the back. You did that. Like, you set that synchronicity up to jog your memory about the greater you that you are. Like, you did that. Like, how amazing is that? Like, you were pretty smart before before you jumped in this body. You figured it. Like, you set up those things where it's like, I always see this. That's all this today. And then somebody else over there said that. It's like, that's exactly what that is. The great Carl Jung talked about it too. It's like a wink from God. It's a wink from like everything in creation that has joined forces at that time to prove to you that you're something bigger than you think you are. So I had set up incredible like hallmarks, because I'm insane. No, because I'm so like numbers and and so I had done this like throughout this whole map of just everything, like impossible synchronicities. And then, so that way, like I had like contingency plans set up to where if I failed and then failed on top of failing, I'd still see this thing over here. Then I'd go, bleh, and then I'd wake up and be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I had set up all that, like, and, it was a bit much, and whatever. And then, and I gave myself 2 outs in them. The first one was going to be if it got a little too crazy as a not a young kid, but like teenager, right before, if I say been successful, but not where it was looking like maybe this isn't going to happen and you can't finish the mission, we'll pull you out then. Okay. Which I did have happen in the hospital. That was my near-death experience. That was all of that. And then, I had a near-death experience anyway. And so, the second one was this one, that I'm talking about now. But essentially what happened with the guy on the night I was born is I was supposed to be completely like shielded because of, and I don't want anybody to think that I think I'm cool. Like, we're all cool.
Yeah.
This isn't that. It's just the nature of what I came in with and some knowledge that I knew, like, I know the inner workings of things. Like, I just got too much information, right? It's like that. Like, think of it like a CIA movie or something, but it's like there. So it's that. So when old dude had to like, oh man, like the birth mother is like, this wasn't accounted for. This was not supposed, what the hell? Like, none of this is supposed to be going on. Like, she made a split decision. They did not foresee it. So when he had to step in, it alerted all everything of who that was. Because there's a mark there. There's a genetic marker. There's all that. And so that's how, and it's like, yeah, like imagine if the dark side could get a hold of somebody who held some real, like within themselves, some really incredible information that would essentially turn the tides at that time and connect people that shouldn't be connected and do all, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like whatever, or like has knowledge that they don't even know that they have from the before time. Some really like the super, super bad, like the other side of the coin. That's like, because that is their goal, is to like, grab as much as they can on their way out. Like, they know that they're going to lose, but that's what they're trying to do. And if they can score somebody that is like coming here loaded for bear, then they're gonna deploy all assets to go after that person. And that's essentially what happened to me. And that was explained. It was like, this is what happened, is that that happened. And then some kind of timeline thing happened where like some shift happened. That was, I got another visitation when I was a kid. And these guys showed up that were, I know that there's a movie about this, but I did not know that there was a movie about this. But the person who wrote that movie also had experiences. So, but they called themselves the Adjusters. Okay. And it's two guys, and they like show up, and their whole thing is to like debrief you on, what you did when you, like, I don't want to say like broke the timeline, but something similar to that. So, and I had a few experiences with these guys. And I mean, they are right out of they're kind of silly, goofy. I mean, I could draw them for you, like, but they're sent to like fix the situations where there's been a prime directive issue, like where somebody's seen something they shouldn't have seen, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So a lot of times, like when people talk about Men in Black and whatever, there are there's the nefarious stuff that's like meant to look like that. But the real deal people that are like that do that they're not going to hurt you or anything. But I think the nature in which they appear to people freaks people out.
Are they from the angelic realm, or what are they? Where are the Adjusters from?
They're like they're angels for sure, but they're not like they're not guardian angels, or they're on the hierarchy. They're like they're right above humans. So like they're not archangels. They're not any of that. but they're of service for sure. And, you know, I mean, they can be bad or good, the ones that I'm talking about, but, it's like, you know, it's like good people have lawyers and bad people have lawyers, right?
Right.
It
Okay.
kind of works like that. That's the way it kind of explained, but, they're angelic, but it's also, I mean, you could also say that I mean, if that term bothers somebody, then, you know, you could say that they're part of like a galactic federation too.
Well, that's what I was asking. Like, what are they from the other side? Are they ETs? Are they angels? Are they spirits? Are they ancestors? There's so much past humans that the lines get fuzzy sometimes.
Yeah. You have your hierarchy of angel. I mean, if you see like an archangel, I mean, you're gonna know. I mean, that's just like, you're gonna freaking know. And I mean, there's nothing that quite compares to that. But that kind of thing will drop you to your knees. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, it's like, you know, like they used to use that term back in the day, like a terrible beauty, you know, like where
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
like you want to look, but you're like, what is it? Because it's like beautiful, but you're like, oh my God. Like, yeah, when I've seen that, um, you're like, oh, I'm fine. It's like this, yeah, what you want now? It's like, I'm like the most badass friend in the world.
Yeah.
You're like, anyways, you know, like,
I haven't seen anything. Well, I take that back. I saw like angels with my own eyeballs like twice in my life, but they were cute and like kind of small. Um, but I see things like sometimes like when I don't know what you want to say, but like I guess remote viewing or whatever, like whenever I try to see you or something and you're going up and with the staff, that kind of thing. I've seen that stuff in my brain, I guess you want to say. But I mean, if I saw something like that with my eyeballs, I would lose. I think that's why they don't like show themselves to me, which I feel like they will because I'm getting more advanced. But
they will, but like, yeah, it's, well, like, you know, Archangel Michael is very involved in like our planet,
yeah, yeah,
very much involved. You know, I mean, all the archangels they all have different jobs, but like Archangel Michael is really like, that's our guys. Okay. Like, I mean, he was there, you know, in the biblical stories with Christ hand in hand, you know, I mean, that is the warrior archangel for our time that we are in now. We are in the, as the, I mean, I could tell you 50 different books that thick of from all over. This is a worldwide thing of him being referenced. Um, and yeah, that's a whole other level. We have our everybody's assigned a guardian angel though. And your guardian angel is, I mean, that's your best friend, you
yeah,
know? I mean, that's really that's your best friend is your guardian angel. And um, a lot of the Protestant churches have omitted that, but it is very much there, is that we're all assigned that. And it doesn't mean you're praying to them or whatever. They're
yeah,
your helper. They're the
yeah,
intercessor. Like, we need why do we have them here? Well, I can tell you firsthand, because you need them.
yeah. And
I
they're
mean,
like waiting for you to ask for help. They're just sitting around like, okay, ask for help. Because since we have free will, they can't like encroach on that. So it's like, from what I understand, is they're just sitting around like, ask for help already. And then when you
right.
start asking for help, it starts coming. It's amazing how that works.
It does. So when you're a kid and you don't know, like, so when I was a kid, right, and I had that horrible stuff, like, your guardian angel can really step in and do a lot of the heavy lifting for you when you're a kid. But my situation, my guardian angel when I was a kid couldn't go up against that thing, the
Wow.
negative thing. My dog did though. Like I had some help step in,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, flaming, like when they say the flaming sword and the whole thing,
Mhm.
it's like our mind would associate it with the sword and we would associate wings, but it's just, it's like a fire, it's just like,
Wow.
it's the sun. It's the pure sun. And that just, it's, it's electric sun radiation light. And then every movement, like if I was to just go, you know, if I was Archangel Michael, for instance, and I just like swiped just the radiant light that comes from that is like acid to anything.
Wow.
It's acid. So that's the sword. And there is no getting through that. There's no getting through that one. And then you have, you have your guardian angels, you have your gut, like you got a lot of help. And, nobody is expected to, you know, do this by themselves. I mean, sometimes I think, people get so lost that you know, they don't even acknowledge the higher side of anything. So then they're angels and they're, I mean, they're there, but you can't break free will. You can't do that. Look,
Mm.
You just can't. And so, I mean, in a snap though, you can't, right?
Yeah.
That's that thing of like in a moment, you can have a turnaround situation where, I mean, it's like the rejoicing that goes on when a person realizes that bigger thing is
Yeah.
here. I mean, that's just like, it's like a party is
Yeah.
happening, and I saw it firsthand in that experience. And I mean, there's so much more to this story. This is like, I mean, I'm not skimming it, but there's really no way to, it's
Yeah.
like, this is volume 1 anyway, but there's so many different facets of things. And I think that people, if people understood how important if you're watching this and you're actually like, you've stuck through it this long,
I was going to say, if you made it this far,
right? And so
you're
like,
curious. Yeah.
like Jamie and I, like we connected like that. But the reason, and you'll have
Yeah.
that, that thing, like where it's just like, it's a resonance and you're just like, and when I was younger though, and I know you did this, I know you did, please tell me you did. But when you're younger, it's hard to navigate that. So you're like, you'll feel that like wah, wah, wah with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
but then that also could be your arch nemesis too.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
100%.
Because you start vibrating, but you can't, now I can, but then you couldn't tell if it was a high or low.
It just was
now
intensity.
it was just intense. Yeah. I need to plug my phone in, so I'm going to unhook my microphone. So just let me know if you can still.
Sure.
So I'm going to take a little, okay. How do I sound? Does it sound okay?
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Let me move this.
By the way, your audio, I can still enhance it like the other one. We'll go
This
like,
is the clapper.
okay.
So we're just talking about like when you meet someone and you vibrate at that level. So, and how we met. So I was going to talk about how we met for a second, because I'd love to tell the story. So yeah, I'm doing my circus thing. You're doing your show thing. We're at a fair together in Connecticut, which apparently was very important to you, which I didn't know, but we can get on that later. If you can tell that story if you want. But, we had been like at this fair all week, and you were like avoiding me because of other reasons. But, because somebody
also remember, I got that fair. That was a last minute add-on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was somebody else there that was like bugging you to no end, and you were just trying to you were kind of shutting off everything. And the first time I saw you, and okay, so let me say this. When I was a kid, I was really good at seeing auras. I could see everyone's aura. And then as I got older, like it would come and go. And now it comes and goes, not as much, but like if I really, really focused on someone, I could, but it's hard for me to focus because I'm like everywhere. But if I see someone, I see their aura, then I know like something's important. So you were painting surfboard or something. And I was at the bleachers, like admiring the hard work I just did for 2 days setting up our show.
Yeah,
and I see the back of you, and the sun is over here, and you're painting your surfboard or whatever. And I saw your aura, and I was like, what? And it was like this goldish, glowing, I don't want to say yellow because I think of yellow like crayon yellow. It was a different goldish yellow. And I was like, damn, I need to talk to that person because they are like gold. Like nobody okay, you see paintings where Jesus has like a gold halo or like all the saints have gold halos. You don't see humans with gold auras. So I was like, okay, this person's important. I need to go speak to them. So I was like, hey, I like your painting. What you doing? And you were just kind of like, okay. And I was like, well, they seems like they don't want to, like they're annoyed, but like something was like pushing me, like you need to talk to this person. And I was like, okay, well, they obviously are busy, so whatever. And you weren't unfriendly, but I guess expect you to turn around and be like, hi, let's be best friends. Yeah.
I wanted to be.
I know. Well, there was a lot of, I had something around me and you had something around you that was not good. So anyway, we've gone past that. We were both surrounded by effed up people.
Oh man. Well, it's funny that I know exactly when you were talking about that exact. Yeah, because I was trying to repaint props because they were poorly loaded in to the show trailer, and so I was like, all right, and yeah, so it's like every fair I had to redo stuff, but that's fine. I'm over it. And but yeah, the color you're talking about, what's weird is like that. Well, first of all, that's my favorite color. Like that's my favorite. I love that. But I have been told that by a few like a few people, and I'm like,
that you're gold. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, like people who really know, like you. I mean, I wish I could see. That's one of those things that I'm like, man, I bet that would be cool to be able to see, someone's. I mean, I know I can feel if somebody's, good or whatever, but or I'll associate a color with someone, but I would love to actually see, that. But I've had like that's been a common thing that I've heard for a long time was that color, and I'm like, look, I don't know how I would be getting any kind of halo, because um anyway, but I love that color though. That's like my favorite color. Uh, totally. And I dream about that color. I always have that color bird appear to me in dreams. It's like, it's a whole thing.
That's cool.
So,
well, I'm happy to be validated that I'm not the only one who saw the yellowish gold.
No, that's how I knew you could see them, because I was like, she saw the right color. Because that's what I've been told that, like, yeah, several times. And that was a cool, yeah, we had this, we went out to eat, but it was like a group of us. And then that was
last day, like after we went through
the last day,
because we were tearing down, and I was like, we're gonna stop tearing down. We're starving. We're gonna go get sushi before it closes. Do you want to go? And I was like, I do. I know this sounds so good right now. I was like, I really don't want to leave without having talked to you. I was like, this is our last chance. And you were kind of like, I don't know, because y'all were in the middle of teardown, and you would have to have stopped and go. We were just like, just stop and go.
Yeah. Who cares? Yeah, and so we did, and I was on the fence about going, um, for many reasons, but yeah, but I was like, all right, we'll go, and so yeah, and then we started talking, and then you had mentioned stuff you were into, and you're like,
No,
yeah, blah blah blah.
how we got started first, I'll never forget this because Matthias brings it up. We were ordering and I was like, I don't know what I want. And somebody had said, well, what about this? And I was like, no, I can't eat beef. And what about this? I'm like, no, I don't want any, like, somebody ordered egg rolls and I was like, no, I can't have pork. And you were like, you don't eat beef or pork. And I was like, no, I can't, like, I can't digest it. And you were like, well, what about something else? And I was like, no, I can't eat that either. And you said, what's your blood type? And I said, A
Oh
negative.
yeah, that's right.
And you like put the menu down and he was like, oh my God, I'm A negative too. And then you said, have you ever heard of Edgar Casey? And Matthias was holding his menu and he goes, huh, like that, because he knew. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I have all the books, all this, blah, blah, whatever. And that, you saying, have you ever heard of Edgar Casey? Like, that was it. That was it. It was over. Game over. We just,
Yep,
we
we're
didn't
off
shut
to the
up the
races.
whole, yeah. We didn't shut up and we haven't shut up since.
No, that was it. Yeah, because it's just, and I always think about that because like people, like at least you were receptive because I'm that's a weird thing that I have had to stop myself from being like inquisitive like that because I'll be like, what's your blood type and what's your da, 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 da. To
Me
just
too. I still
people,
do it. Yeah.
I just do that and then they're like, I don't know, like that's most people, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, I was just curious because it was you have this thing, and it's like too much information. I'm like, not enough information in
Right,
your
right,
head.
right.
So I get really upset. Like, why don't you want to know that? Like, why don't you want to know everything that there is to know?
Because they're too stuck in what they see and touch, and they're too in the world.
Yeah.
And they don't care. I mean, I've talked to people and they don't care. I've seen people who have like incredible auras and whatever, and I'm like, I think you're something special. Not like we're not all special, but something. And they're like, I don't care, whatever, and drink. Like, I'm like, oh, you're running it, but you have free will, so whatever. Maybe you'll get it next lifetime.
That's what I was talking about earlier with people. Like when I went to had my big experience where
Yeah.
it was like so important, like that there was so many that would get lost. That's what I'm talking about. Where it's like, you can't have a bodhisattva working at a gas station, you know what I mean? Like it's like they might for a minute, but hopefully they'll remember and get out, so it's that kind of deal. But yeah, that's that was the moment because I knew because I'm always looked at like a freak when I don't want like, a ribeye, right?
Right.
Because they're looking at me and they're like, "Oh, you're from Texas. Like, you want to like ribeye?" And I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
no." And people have a block on that too.
And alcohol is the same way. I cannot, my body is like, no. I mean, it is legit poison. My body is like, you cannot have any alcohol. And if I have a little, I suffer for it. And so that's another thing.
Yeah.
Because it's such a low, I mean, like red meat, not saying anybody who eats red meat, I don't care. My husband eats it all day long. He's from Argentina. Go for it. I don't care. But it's such a low vibrational thing. Alcohol is such a low vibrational thing. When you and I ingest something that and put in our body's like, what are you doing? You're vibrating up here and you're consciously putting this crap in your body. And so we reject it. You know what I mean? So it's weird. And that's an episode that we'll get to later in the future that I can't wait to do. It's about the whole RH negative thing,
Yes.
because that is wild to me as well. And when
It
I see
is.
other people who have their, I don't know what to say, symptoms, but whatever they have, what they can and can't do, and their personalities and physical things and all this stuff, I'm like,
Yeah, and there's so much out there that's wrong about it
yeah,
too, where it's like, you know, um, now it's like it's caught wind for some reason recently, where people are starting to talk about it more. But it is definitely, there is a difference in, like, I mean, just like you're talking dietary wise. I mean,
Big time.
you know, and that's a whole other, whole other ball game. And yeah, the food and the, the alcohol thing too is another one that's like, oh man, what was it that I was, oh man, oh, I was going to send it to you, but I'll just tell everybody. There's a great, uh, quote that, well, I mean, it was in this chapter I was reading about, kind of like during the time of, Christ, like that time period. And, that they were talking about wine, right? And like the energetic sort of like thing with wine, right?
Right.
And, during that time, that wine was actually, it was from Rudolf Steiner. It was one of the things where it was talking about how wine was really directly responsible for, in what he calls the post-Atlantean epoch. So we'll get into that another time, but just shelf that. But for those of you that are like, what? Anyway, so, but he talked about the wine was, and alcohol was really responsible, for mankind forgetting their, forgetting that they had been here before and that they had,
Wow.
that it was really that because of the construct of it and what it does to the astral body. It like disconnects. And it's so funny because, people that drink to like express themselves, and stuff like that, what they're expressing is like the lowest part of themselves.
Yeah.
It's not the high, like it is,
Okay.
it's like it's the funky stuff. Like why you like you know? And I'm not saying that drinking, I'm saying people who are just like, who get trashed because they feel like they like themselves more when they're trashed or whatever. You know what I'm talking. It's just so, like they call it spirits for a reason, like alcohol is the root of it is an Arabic word, actually, that gets into that. But I can't, anything that's just heavy and, I mean, if it's like, if it is beef and if somebody is like graciously giving it to me and they don't know, that I don't eat it or whatever, but I can tell that it would really like hurt their feelings if I didn't, I feel like at that point, like it's blessed sort of, like it would be more of a slap in the face to not show that person kindness by like, what I'm saying? So
No, but I tried that one time. I tried that one time and I tried that one time. I was like, well, I'll just do this, whatever. And I ate a little bit and I could tell my body was like, no. And so I had like a baked potato and I started sliding it under the potato, hide it. And I had like 3 bites of this steak and it was like this amazing, like food, expensive, whatever. And I was like, I paid for it later and I was just felt, it took like 2 days to recover. And I don't even mean just like digestion wise. I mean, just the heaviness and like all that, like just,
Oh,
and it doesn't mean like, this is for me speaking with my body and my blood type. I don't care what it, like, I would hate for anybody to watch this and be like, well, I drink alcohol.
no judgment. No judgment.
Like my husband eats meat every single day. Red meat, baby, go for it. You from Argentina, go for it. Don't care.
No,
But there,
I mean, no, do you,
I've heard this, and I don't want to say it from the wrong person, but I think it was Yogananda, and someone was like, I want to be like, a yogi and a guru and stuff. And they were like, okay, well, he's like, but I really like women, like, I still kind of want to have like different women on the side. And I also still want to drink. And He said, you can do that. He's like, you have free will. You can do all of that. But as you start progressing and leveling up in your vibrations, you might not desire that stuff anymore. And I was like, dude, so it's not you can't level your soul up or you can't be like, well, in order to do that, I guess I have to cut this off. Will it help? Yeah. But you'll eventually not want it because you're going to be so in tune that you're going to be like, this is right for me. This is wrong for me,
And being oh my God, it's the word is not aesthetic. To people that like starve themselves, beat this, whatever. It's the monks that like, it's like you're starving, you're putting your body through torture, whatever. But there's people too that are so like, I want to go on this path or whatever. And they're forcing themselves to be like a raw food vegan, right? Or whatever, or fasting this amount of time, like a day, blah, blah, blah. And you become your own stumbling block because that's what you're focused. You're not focused on the right thing, which is, and everything's like, it's all going to stay in balance, like everything's got to stay balanced. If your equilibrium's off, then there's no fasting, raw food, vegan, meditation, whatever that's going to do anything.
Or hallucinogens too. Like so many people I know are trying to get to that. Instead of going the path of alignment, they're just trying to get there. And they're like, oh man, you should do some mushrooms with me and this. And I'm like, I mean, you might like open your mind a little bit, but you've missed point A and you went straight to C sometimes, and maybe not all the time. Some people do, some people don't, but you missed all this. So when you're done, you only can rely on that. You missed the knowledge. Like we at any time can like go into that. Those people can only do it with the aid of something else. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you're always going to have to rely on that to get whatever you're trying to get to. Instead of going through the levels, you're just jumping like, the stairs. That's not great.
Yeah. There's a whole, I know there's a lot of psychedelics that are really doing amazing things for people with, especially soldiers and stuff with PTSD. I know that. Yeah. I mean, I get it. But those guys are also very mentally disciplined.
Yeah.
So those guys, it's like, that's not just somebody wanting to have an experience. That's somebody who's like not afraid of anything.
Yeah.
And is willing to face whatever nasty, dark stuff that is going to show up when they do that so that they can get to the other side. So when people try to draw that comparison, like, well, they're doing this. It's like, no, but they're different. Like their whole mindset had to be disciplined to do what they do.
And again, it goes to each individual person. Eat what is good or not. Take what's good or not. And then also don't be afraid to change and grow. I think some people are so stuck. Like I have a friend who is so stuck in like what we were like in high school. Like he's still listening to the same music or dressing the same. And I'm like, that was like 25 years ago. Like, it's okay. And he's like, oh man, you don't listen to that anymore. No, because we listen to like low vibrational, mean music. And now I want to listen to different but you did it in high school. Okay, well, I'm not 18 anymore. I mean, that's like saying like, well, you used to really be into like crayons and popples when you were 7 years old. Are you still? Okay.
More that than the other.
But yeah, yeah, more into popples than like really bad music. But it's okay to grow and change. And like, for an example, this is something I learned recently too. Like when I was younger or like teenager-ish, I was in like really bad situations. It's awful. Went through a horrible childhood. So like, yeah, I would go out with my friends and smoke weed because it did actually raise me up. Okay. Well, then I learned that like the frequency of things, that like marijuana, like its frequency is 420. Apparently that's why they like use 420 as code. Did you know that?
I did hear that.
Yeah. So you have to be down here in the low vibration, but you smoke and it brings you up to 420. Well, as I've gotten older and grow, so like I was married to like this ex-cop for 15 years, so I definitely wasn't doing it. But when I divorced him, you know, you go through a divorce, you've been through a divorce, you kind of like lose weight and cut your hair and whatever. And like, you know, I remember after that, like getting my power back and stuff. And I met my current husband and everything, and I was feeling much better. And then I went to hang out with some people and they were smoking. So I did. And it had the opposite effect on me. And I was like, oh man, I haven't smoked in so long, whatever. And I was like, this is like, is it the weed today? Like it's crap or whatever. I was like, this isn't good. So later again, I tried it again and I was like, I feel worse. I'm like, what is happening? And then I saw this video about frequency and where that was. And then you have like joy and love up here, and you have like anger and envy and down here. And I realized I was lowering my vibration by ingesting marijuana.
Down stepping.
That's something to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like what? Like, that is wild. Like, yeah, I needed it because I was low, but now I'm living in light and love. So why am I, you know, that has still blown to me. And now, like, my friends from high school, you know, some of them are still like, hey man, you want to smoke or take gummies or something? And I'm like, hell no.
No, I've always had a negative experience. I tried it. I was trying to connect my ex, not the one, you know, this is long, like I was trying to connect with him because I was like, I can't get on the same wavelength. Like I just like, it was like a last ditch effort, right? To like, just try, like, you know, I didn't want to like, if you can't beat them, join them. It wasn't that, but I was like, maybe there, I knew that we were not plugging into the same port. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I decided, I was like, okay, well, I'll try this. So this is hilarious, but, every time that I have tried, pot, which is probably, I can count on one hand, but, every single time it would put me in a psychotic state. Okay. Like psychotic. It's not supposed to do that, but, not at all. But when I had my DNA report done, there's a gene in there. There's like, and it's dominant for me. And it's the same one that, cause look at, I don't look, but anyway, it's the same gene that that Tibetans carry, that, like Sherpas and stuff, where they can be in super high altitude and they're fine.
Yeah.
Right. So it's related to that, but it only affects like two groups, which is Tibetans and the indigenous people of Japan, which are called the Ainu, like AINU.
Yeah.
It's dominant in me. And so it says THC will cause psychotic episodes. Like literally I have it in the report. It says it.
So
and I'm
what
like,
do you do?
God.
Elaborate on psychotic, please. Elaborate on psychotic. What?
Like if you've ever seen like a meth head like tweaking out, where they're like, the tree is like, freaking FBI agent, man. Like it's that, right? But also just like, I mean, just where everything is like, there's bugs on the wall and it's just,
God. It's bad trip.
Oh,
okay.
Like, yeah, everything is like a Stanley Kubrick Clockwork Orange nightmare. And then full blown like rage monster. So rage. And, like where, like, true story. I took a piece of sheet metal and I was like, you know, like, I tore it in half. And this was witnessed by like 3 people, and they're like, what the, like, like and they're like, dude, what did she do? You know,
wow, dude.
They put me in a room with ice on me and a fan and like put a belt around my hands until it wore off. I mean, it was bad. And I was like, I'm never, never doing that again. And that was pot. That was just pot. That was like 2 puffs, 3 puffs off of a joint. That's all that was. And there are people in Japan, in like the remote parts of Japan, like I read a whole thing about it, that like never came back home after that. Like they did pot too much and they were gone forever. And it's so funny because it's like it's pot. So it's like, no, I always knew. I was like, I used to say to like, I was like, Mom, you know, like, or Grandma, everybody, y'all don't have to worry about me, because like I would say to them, like, I don't need any help, and I don't need to do anything that's gonna, where I'm never coming back home again.
Yeah.
But it's so bizarre because it's an active, I like the idea of like, wow, that sounds like, man, very relaxing, and you know, you want to eat something or whatever. That sounds cool. But yeah, no, the only positive time that I ever had with it was when I ingested it on accident. It wasn't really positive though. It was still like a, you know, fear and loathing in Las Vegas. I mean, it was still that.
Yeah.
It was still like, hey man, you know, but but it wasn't, I wasn't mad. But I just had a very negative reaction to it entirely. Like,
but you, if you have that in your DNA, which is found in that type of Asian, like people, like where do you, like how, like where do you think that came from? Do you think that is some kind of like, it's not in your genealogy, right? Or do you think that's just something when you were up at your control panel where like, she don't need to do that, let's just put that in?
maybe. I mean, on the archaic side, yeah, I did the archaic DNA report. I did all that. But you know, our DNA it's a, you know, a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on DNA, and it is a blueprint in a sense of all of the pieces that make up the physical body that was perfect, like was built perfectly enough for your individual soul to inhabit.
Yeah.
It had to be that way. So yes, you're right. So yes, that would be something. Yeah, it had to be these things, because there's other strange things in there too. The high altitude thing. I mean, I hate the cold. I hate it. Hate it. I am not one of those people that's going to go skiing at a resort somewhere. I mean, we used to say that's white people stuff. Like, and I mean, people look at it like my family, like they said that, like, that's white people stuff. Because it's like, we're not mountain people, snowing on hills, people with cold people. We're not that. And that's a good thing. But when I would go into the mountains or whatever, doing shows or whatever, everybody else is like, ooh, you know, and I felt great.
Wow, that's
you know, I felt amazing. The higher I would get, the better I felt. So like the place where I'm living now is actually like almost sea level. It's real swampy. And it's like, you know, this feels like, you know, it's like, it's counter to what I need probably.
yeah.
But in another sense, it is grounding. So, you know, there's that too. But I don't know. There's everybody's got a resonance with a place, you know, or an area. I love the ocean.
Oh God,
always have.
Me too.
Or love it. But like I don't like, you know, party beach town, like not that.
No.
Yeah, I'm not into that part, but yeah, the ocean is a deal. There's something. I mean, there's so many. I've been all over, but yeah, it's just an interesting thing how that all plays out. But I think you're right about that, though, with the resonance of, like, you meet people and you connect, and you're like, okay, cool. Like that's another part of the tapestry. And folks, like we're doing this because we kind of didn't even have a choice. Like there were forces that were like, oh, but you will though. I mean, it was like this this was like had to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's like, hey, you want to do this podcast thing? And I'm like, oh my God. Because I had tried to start, was about to do it. Like I had got the stuff, I had other stuff, my other studio. But and just one thing after another. And I was like, you know what? Never mind. I'm not going to do this. I had recorded a couple on my own, like way before, before we had, before you called me that day. And then, and I was like, man, well, maybe I'm just not ready, And I started thinking, I'm like, it's just, I want something that's engaging and interactive, like with somebody like And I was like, well, I can't pull in anyone that, my phone's probably about to die. Huh?
I was like, there you are. I can't see you.
Yeah, I had the low battery thing come on. So yeah, but here we are and we're doing this. And
well, I called you on my birthday.
That's what it was, yes.
I called you on my birthday because I was in the shower, which I get a lot of downloads. And if people don't know like what downloads is, it's basically, I'm not going to be like, oh, a voice told me or Jesus told me or something. It's not like that. It's like an instant, like, blam, like knowledge.
Yeah.
You're just like, blah, blah, blah. And then bam, something hits you. And you're like, oh, that. Okay. So, I was in the shower for some reason and I got like, you need to do this and you need to change your lifestyle. And that was the part where I told my husband, I was like, everything that we have right now, we need to like sell it and do something else. And he was like, okay, like he trusts me, God, he's a godsend. But like, that's something that like crazy people do. Like sell everything and like walk around with a sign that says the end is near. It's not that extreme, but it is like, it was like, you need to do this. And the way to do this is XYZ. And I was like, I can't talk to myself like this. I mean, I do talk to myself, but I couldn't look at myself talking like that's not going to happen. And then I was like, I should call Melodee. And this happened, like I was in this shower the night before my birthday. And then on my birthday, I was just like, I know it's my birthday and all, but like, hi, I need to talk to you right now. And
yeah,
like, and well, it was like, not only that, but like, I remember, like I told you, I was like, do you feel like something's going to happen? I was like, something's coming and I don't know what it is. And even now I'm just like, can't quite put my finger on it. But I mean, I have a lot of things. There's a lot
so
of
much
things.
has happened too.
There's a lot that has happened. Well, okay. So in 2 months, my birthday's coming around. So we're like 10 months into this.
How cool though.
Yeah. And what's happened in those 10 months. And then here we are. And then events to be like, and we need to remember, we talked about it in the summertime. We're like, okay, fall, like we're getting fall, like we need to do it in the fall. And then we're like, no, we should wait about this. We should wait about that. There's a lot of changes happening. There's elections and this and solar flares and blah, blah, blah. And then when it was time to do it, it was like,
oh yeah.
Both of us were like,
no, I
okay.
mean, it was like, it was like, do it now. It was that. And our first recording of this was greatly. We got interrupted in some strange ways.
Yeah.
But
and like I'm still trying to.
Again,
I'm trying to make it happen.
Does not even do that. It doesn't do that. It's incapable of doing what it did. It was an emoji that was floating around like that, and it doesn't generate that. There is no way to do that.
Yeah, there's no. I don't know how I did it. I don't know, but it happened.
But it was like an actual blue on my end. It was a blue circle with the thing, and it was going like that. And I was like,
and we've been talking for 2 hours and nothing has popped up. So, and then we're like, well, we should take this footage and share it to the world. And then it disappeared.
Because it was like, no, that was just for y'all. Anyway, so here we are, but I know that we crammed in like a ton of stuff to this, but like, thing is, it's like trying to get out like who you are, and here's all these experiences. I mean, we didn't skim, but there again, this is volume 1. There's so much more to this story, and there's so much to learn. And I want to know, like, I would love for people to feel, because I tell you, it's uncomfortable. Like some of the stuff that, and I even censored, tried not to, but was actively like going, like trying to make myself not censor how casual I can be about talking about experiences, because it's like if you went on vacation and you're telling your friend about your trip to Miami and you stayed in this place or whatever. It's that casual for me because it happened.
Yeah.
All these things happened. It happened for you, you know. And so you're just like, blah, 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 you know, and it's just, it's not crazy. I mean, I had something crazy happen at, you know, place where I'm working. And it was caught on camera, and everybody's like, oh my God. And I'm like, no, it's cool. Like, here's proof of, you know, this is this thing. And yeah, that happened, but this is like,
everyday stuff.
But there's people in the comment that are like, you should probably quit. Like, you just get out. And I was like, if I quit, it's not going to be because that happened. Okay? But I'm just saying. But it's like, you know, this is it's very real, and it's hard to not, like, I know that people get hung up on stuff and hung up on terms and hung up on things that, and they, you know, they don't want to let go of
programming
or limiting belief. Like, man, it's not like nobody, like I would never ever tell somebody to not, you know, believe what they believe or whatever. I'm saying that if you're getting locked into this, like this much of it, there's all this, and all this proves even more what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not, you can't, last thing I want to say before we cut off Sunday, I don't want my phone to die, but when we briefly touched on fear, and I want to say this: fear is the food of the dark side. Okay, folks. So, like, the way it was shown to me is fear is like, here's your house, right? And a lot of times if you dream or whatever, and you dream about a house or in a house, it's like kind of the compartments of your mind and your, you know, soul and everything else. But imagine you're in a house and it's beautiful and you have all this expensive, priceless stuff in there. You've got babies in there and puppies and all these things that are very vulnerable and, you know, memories and whatever. And then there's a window that you've left unlocked and cracked that much over there. Okay. And on the other side of that window, there's a river with crocodiles in it and snakes and all sorts of horrible is in there. Okay. Now, you might just have a fly come in and you're like, what? And then you're like, oh, okay, well, whew, close. Okay. But when you are in fear and you're in that state of fearing, and I don't mean like fear, I mean fearing like anything, fearing of letting go of beliefs, fear of that you're going to burn in hell, fear that you're choosing the wrong diet, fear that you might gain weight, fear that this person and the person, fear of this, and what if I don't start that job, and then this, and then fear, doubt, all of that window gets pushed open. And yeah, you might have a fly that gets in and you zap it, and then you go, I need to chill out and close that damn window. Or it could be a rattlesnake. And it enters into your mind, and that is the fuel that everything that is horrible and unseen, again, we see 0.00 That's not 35%. That's not even 1%. That's 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. We cannot perceive anything at all, really. Your dog can. Your dog can perceive 1% of that. So, which is a lot higher than you, but not you, but the big you. So it's like the fear thing is, I wrote this and then I'm going to shut up. So we're talking about all this crazy stuff and we're going to have, if people are watching this or whatever, tuned out, I don't know. And they're in the comment thread and we're like, there's a whole thing with all aliens or demons and all that's, and you're going to burn in hell if you talk to your angel or whatever. All that is complete horse. It comes out of nowhere. Sorry, it is. I don't know where y'all's head is at. I don't know why you're living in fear. Why are you afraid? So the thing is with the fear is, okay, check this out. So I made like a question. I was going to ask you this. I was like, what is the purpose of any religion, any, okay, to shame anyone with extrasensory abilities who are perceiving things, right? When every religious text, especially the Bible, right? Especially the Bible is like, it's like a book of paranormal activity. The whole thing.
Yeah.
It's unusual people with unusual powers, unusual circumstances, miracles happening, synchronicities here and there, all this stuff, unbelievable tapestries of life and fate and the intertwinings of all things that we're still very affected by to this very day. If that is not powerful, then I don't know what that is. Supernatural in and of itself.
Yeah.
So how is it that any religion can deem you a heretic or for having extrasensory abilities?
Yeah.
When the book that they study is quite literally like a dictionary. It's like these are the tales of weird.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is the whole thing from the beginning all the way to their mess. Somebody's having sex with giants in Genesis. Like, I mean, this is like right out of some like crazy movie, and that's okay there. But here it's not.
Right.
Why?
2024, it's not okay. Yeah.
The reason it's not is because we are now, because of this is where you get into the deeper stuff, is because there's conditioning that has happened to make us, whether or not you're like, we are in a scientific materialistic society, which is you can't touch it, smell it, taste it, see it, or hear it.
Yeah.
It's not real. You're going to go in your science lab. You're going to cut open a frog to see how the frog, what makes the frog tick. The essence of the frog is not in a dead frog's body. You're not going to figure out anything about any species anywhere by cutting it open, the material physical body, because we're missing the whole essence, the thing that is making everything brilliant and wonderful and amazing is not in this, in that. Like this is our bodies and everything around us is a manifestation of something that has been created so that we can be housed in this experience and do our thing. So all of these crazy things that we're talking about are not crazy at all. And I think that more people are going to have, and they are having experiences, and it feels more comfortable to put a label on it. Maybe, this is prophetic or this is whatever. I don't care. But the fact is that, it doesn't bother me if somebody thinks really that it's not, that's like somebody like talking crap about, Paris, France or whatever. And they've, and saying like, oh God, yeah. But like if you lived there for like most of your life and you're like, Well, I'm telling you the way it is because I know because I live there.
Right.
It's like you're not going to bother me because I
Yeah.
lived it, so I know, and you've never been, so you don't know.
Yeah.
So my only thing is I try to not I don't want anyone to feel like I'm picking on them or whatever, downplaying everything. No, not at all. But I think that if you found this and you found if you found this and you found it for a reason, that's the way I feel. And when we're talking about the crazy stuff, there's so much out there, and it's not nothing is this or that. Nothing is this or that.
Yeah.
Never is. Never is. It's not this or that, ones and zeros. Look at life, right? Look at the world. Look at how many trillions of species of living things are on this planet. It's certainly not this or that.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like we are God's refrigerator art.
Yeah.
I like that. That's beautiful. That was a big moment that I had as a huge moment. I had kind of awakening thing. Was a funny, how it'll be a little thing sometimes.
Do it.
I said, how it'll be like a little thing sometimes, that'll and it's profound.
Yeah.
But I was watching some nature thing. It was on this circus. I was in the circus and I was watching some nature thing, and there were these little seahorses called and they look they call them sea dragons.
Yeah.
But there's a certain one, a species of them. And it was this whole thing on Nova about them. And they're unbelievably beautiful. They're so beautiful. They've got all this fancy stuff, and they're just, and they're all unique. They serve zero purpose in the water, in their ecosystem. Nobody wants to eat them. Okay. They don't do anything. They literally just exist to be pretty. And that's what these biologists were saying. And it just went, and it was oh, that's that creative force that created all that is the life, itself. I just want this thing that it doesn't have to have a purpose. It doesn't have to be part of the ecosystem. It doesn't have to make sense. It's just beautiful, creative, and that's just going to be there. And scratch your head over that all day long,
Yeah.
So that's that's kind of where I want, we'll go on that direction of there's so much to talk about. And that's why.
Yeah.
Because some things don't make sense, and it's not going to be logical. It just is what it is, and it's some amazing experience. So.
Well, yeah, we've been talking for hours, but we really only scratched the surface, honestly. And I think with the...
Sorry.
Is your phone dying? Can you charge it?
No, it's, I can't. The way it's iPhone. If I unplug this, everything goes down.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Okay.
What percentage are you at?
Y'all are going to laugh. Where is it?
My God. Wow. Is that a clown prop?
I'm getting a clue. No, I literally bought this to be able to see. Because I have some books that the font is so small that there are no reading. And so I got it. And
earlier we were talking about not saying the OLD word. Girl.
That is bad. This is bad. When this started though for me was I think it's because of the studio I worked at, and I stared at the blue screens for so long.
Yeah.
Editing. And I didn't know anything about the blue light blocking glasses at the time. Because it's not if I had full light right now, I'd be able to see that. But it's when there's just, But yeah, but there are some fonts that are just, it's not happening.
Is your phone about to die?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna.
Okay.
Rest
Okay.
assured, yes.
Okay. We can wrap it up. We could keep on and talking for hours. There's some more stuff that I wanted to mention about fear and near-death experiences and exit points and setting up your life. But we can cover all that when we do like a full reincarnation video.
I think, we'll do volume 2. It can be a continuation of this, what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Because I feel great about it. And I would like anybody that's watching this to please, like, I love to know about people's crazy experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And what y'all think about it. Because, Georgia's a weird place. Texas is massive, but there's so many strange areas in like the United States, especially along that line that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right there, the 33 degree line. That's a weird one. And I would love to know about anyone else out there that's like got some cool stories you want to tell us and what your opinions are about all things considered.
Well, we feel better when we watch, or I know I do, when I watch videos of other people telling their stories and their experiences.
Yes.
It makes me feel better. So why am I not sharing that as well? Why am I keeping my experiences and not helping other people? So if it's helping me, then I should be helping other people. And maybe, it'll help other people be like, God, I've seen things or this or happen, but I don't want people to think I'm crazy or I'm ashamed of it. And like maybe they'll find a place where they can go to and find other like-minded people, because we need to find our tribes, if you will, on this earth to help each other.
And it's time to to come out of the broom closet.
Yeah, girl. Fly right on out.
Get on out that broom closet. That's the best wish. That's how we started it off. That's how. Oh my God, I love it. Okay, my phone's gonna die.
Thank you to everybody who made it this far.
For sure. People watch long form stuff. I'm telling you, I'd be sold. I'd be hooked up. Cool. I'm gonna charge this up and I'll text you in a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Okay, now I'm leaving. Here we go.